I have never seen Futurama. Now, I know that sounds bad, especially coming from the guy who's seen every episode of The Simpsons, Family Guy, South Park, Big Mouth, but good news, everyone, that changes today. My reason for not watching Futurama before now is for one very simple reason. See, from Kid Me's perspective, it wasn't The Simpsons. That's all I cared about watching on Sky One, and so to me, Futurama was just that weird space show that would air before The Simpsons every night. But the characters aren't yellow, so what's even the point? I think my dad probably played a part in that as well. As a kid, we would watch The Simpsons in our living room together from after dinner until they stopped airing it for the night. Sky usually playing 4 episodes from 6 to 8 p.m. Futurama, on the other hand, did not get anywhere near as much spotlight, generally airing from 5 till 6. And so around that time, I was probably doing my homework, trying to get it done in time so I could watch The Simpsons. Anytime I asked about that other show and why it looked so much like it, he didn't show much interest in checking it out, and so neither did I. I suppose there's something just so much more universal about a nuclear family going through relatable situations compared to an average guy getting sent to the future and needing to grow accustomed to how society has changed while getting a job as a delivery boy. But if there's one thing a more niche idea can garner, it's an extremely dedicated fanbase. And so I've heard nothing but praise for Futurama. I see folks everywhere praise its creativity, character development, and generally just for being an incredibly smart series that manages to stand on its own, away from The Simpsons. I mean, these writers had goddamn PhDs and master's degrees. All I got is a copy of Madagascar for PS2. Because of that, I've been shown a handful of episodes here and there. Nothing major, just the 1 or 2 episodes everybody raves about. And so I'm looking forward to finally getting to check out the whole thing from start to finish. Whether or not this actually is the whole thing remains to be seen, however. See, Futurama is a show that has been cancelled and subsequently revived more than... well, a show that's been cancelled and subsequently revived more than twice. And because of that, there's no telling how long Futurama will actually go on for. The series was initially produced by Fox from 1999 to 2003 before being dropped. Then, a situation very similar to Family Guy occurred, where Adult Swim reruns rejuvenated interest. Comedy Central stepping in to produce a set of 4 straight-to-DVD movies that would later be split into an eventual Season 5 in 2008, which in and of itself resulted in them making an additional 2 seasons, 6 and 7 coming out from 2010 to 2013. All seemed well before Comedy Central then cancelled the series yet again, the show only making a brief comeback in 2014 for a crossover with The Simpsons back on Fox. Don't worry, I'm aware this is complicated, there'll be time to get into the details later. Either way, after a near decade-long wait, Hulu has taken the reins to produce new episodes, with 2023 through 2024 seeing season 8 and 9. And now they've confirmed a 10th and 11th season that will release throughout 2025 and 2026. So for the time being, seems like Futurama's here to stay. Now, whether or not that's a good thing remains to be seen, as one thing I've also consistently heard about the show is that the fan opinions on each revival seems to be fairly mixed. Some thinking the series has stayed pretty consistently good throughout its lifetime, no matter when it came out, while others believe there to be serious diminishing returns every time it's brought back from the dead, the recent Hulu seasons marking a definite low point in quality. I mean, I don't know, I haven't watched it. At the time of Futurama's conception, The Simpsons was already in its 5th season as creator Matt Groening was approached by Fox to create another series for them, in which he started to come up with the idea that would eventually lead to Futurama in 1995, with the help of Simpsons alumni David Cohen. Over the many years of trying to get the show on the air, a time in which Groening described as the worst experience of my grown-up life, there was a ton of back and forth over how much involvement the network would have, Fox infamously having very little input into the actual writing of The Simpsons and what they were allowed to get away with. But times had changed. A kid burned their house down and killed their sister over a Beavis and Butthead episode. There was more of a conscious effort on networks' parts to make sure they weren't promoting any bad or antisocial behavior. So in response, Matt said, "Fuck you, I made The Simpsons, I'm doing whatever the hell I want." And now we have Futurama. You know the drill, I'm excited to see where my first impressions end up laying compared to the average fan. And so without further ado, it's time to review and rank every Futurama episode ever. Space Pilot 3000 is hands down one of the greatest examples of a first episode. It should be used as the gold standard, it's that good. It's here we meet Philip J. Fry, a down-on-his-luck pizza delivery boy. He's got a crummy job, his girlfriend's just dumped him, and now he's got to spend the start of the new millennium all alone thanks to Icy Wiener. Ah, crud. However, due to, well, general incompetence, he winds up getting cryogenically frozen until the year 2999, right in the verge of the new millennium.
It's December 31st, 2999. 1,000,000 years.
You know, show taking place 1,000 years in the future could not have happened at a better time. Although, I don't know. New Year's happening all over the world at the same time? Don't they know time zones exist? Are you sure these guys have master's degrees? Boy. The best thing this pilot accomplishes would have to be its world building. While managing to tell its own story, we get tons of these sprawling CG shots showing off what's become of the world as Fry attempts to escape Leela, this one-eyed alien who's been tasked with giving him a career chip which will trap him as a delivery boy forever. Throughout the chase, we see so much of the world and what's changed, even getting a glimpse at what happened to old New York after they decided to rebuild over top of it, creating new New York naturally. We're also introduced to this banding robot Bander, who plays off Fry really well. Fry is this dopey everyman who is typically very gullible and innocent, but at the end of the day he's a good person with a kind heart, which allows Bander to be his perfect opposite, this selfish, mean robot who only really looks out for himself. Anytime they interact is just a treat.
It's my old neighborhood. Man, this brings back a lot of memories.
Keep them to yourself, Pops.
The thing I was most surprised to see while watching this was just how much the writing managed to set itself apart from The Simpsons, a comparison this show undoubtedly needed to get itself away from as soon as possible. Whereas The Simpsons was more so focused on making fun of events and pop culture from the time, Futurama seems much more interested in using whatever was happening at the time to create these absurd scenarios of how much crazier things could be 1,000 years from now. There's the freedom to not restrict themselves to commenting on exactly whatever is happening now. I think the joke that got me hardest was the introduction of the suicide booth, which we then learn was first invented in 2008. I mean, they weren't far off. Eventually, Leela also joins the two of them after realizing she has a choice for what she wants from her future. And so the three of them introduce themselves to Fry's only living relative, Professor Farnsworth, who gives them all a job to ride around in his spaceship as intergalactic delivery drivers. Great. I'm always astonished at just how much they managed to pack into only 22 minutes here. There is not a second of fluff. This is a fantastic start to the show that mainly accomplishes growing the viewer accustomed to this new setting by cleverly only focusing on a small cast of characters, and only teasing us for what's to come in the future. Gonna be a lot of puns, I can already tell. Oh yeah, by the way, the intro to Futurama is incredibly catchy. Even as someone who had only ever seen like 4 episodes of this show, I could hum the theme song to a T. It's iconic. I like that, despite being a fairly episodic series, Episode 2 still aims to ease us into things by introducing the rest of the Professor's employees, notably Hermes, who takes care of the business side of things, Staff Doctor, Dr. Zoidberg, as well as his intern, Amy, who just sorta appears. The worst thing a show can do, in my opinion, is try to shove way too much into a pilot, blowing their load way too early and introducing so many characters that none get the chance to shine. So I'm glad they took their time here. Episode 2 mainly focusing on an adventure between Fry, Leela, and Bander, with Amy tagging along, as they go to the moon on their first job. Despite being Amy's first episode, I unfortunately think Fry and Leela, once again, steal the show. You know, it's this monumental feat for mankind, before finding out that it's been turned into a Disney World-esque theme park that eventually begins to lose its luster. I'm not sure how long they're going to focus on Fry being this fish out of water. Obviously, the more the series goes on, the more Fry is going to be accustomed to the future and all, but I'm going to cherish it while it lasts, because episodes like this really show the strengths in the concept. Fry getting upset to see how certain events from his time have been, well, lost to it. Getting frustrated at seeing moments which he grew up thinking were the pinnacle of mankind being undermined just because of how normal all of this is in the future, like getting a man to the moon. I enjoy how they used this to bring attention to Leela's mindset too. Again, her seeing all of this as the norm and not understanding why Fry is so over the moon about something God damn it, see, it results in this super sweet moment by the end where she takes the time to actually sit and acknowledge how amazing this all is. That everything she's thought nothing of is in fact rather spectacular. And we get to see them share that together. It really makes you care about their relationship. But it's still really funny, too. This show has such a quick blink and you'll miss it style of comedy. You know, if you hear through your eyes or something, I don't know. And them being delivery people really is the perfect idea for an episodic series like this. You can literally take them anywhere and are always ripe for introducing new characters and locations. While the first episode did a fantastic job at introducing the world of Futurama, I honestly think I like this one more for further introducing us to these characters and their dynamics with one another. Going at the top of the list for now. Roommate unfortunately breaks the short-lived streak of these episodes getting better and better, although that may have been by design. See, apparently this episode was written to directly address Fox's concerns with the darker themes of the show, with the goal here being to create a more typical and sitcom-y scenario you would expect from the premise. That being, Fry gets a roommate. Who's a robot? It must have done the trick though, as Fox reportedly hated the final product, and is most likely what convinced them to back off and let the writers do whatever they wanted. Who could have thunk it? Still, on its own, without knowing any of that context, it's not like this is a bad episode or anything. In fact, there's a lot to enjoy here, mostly due to the strengths of Fry and Bender's dynamic.
Fry, of all the friends I've had, you're the first.
With Fry getting in the way of business by living in the office, he's offered to move in with Bender. The two of them trying to find a good apartment before Bender gets kicked out and is upset that he can't live with Fry anymore. I actually think the more grounded story works well. Also allows us to see a bunch of creativity in the animation department with all these different future apartments. The art direction in this show really is amazing, especially for the time. The character designs are also great, although in Fry's case there might be some bias there. This episode mainly succeeds at strengthening the friendship between Fry and Bender, but that's about it. Definitely the weakest of the first three, but still far from bad. Got a solid ending too. Here we see Leela try to find Lev, which leads to her meeting a new character, this military officer Zap Brannigan, originally to be voiced by Phil Hartman. You might know him as Troy McClure on The Simpsons, although after his untimely death we've got Fry's voice actor Billy West doing his best job to fill a void.
Wow, the Zap Brannigan?
Uh-huh.
Who's the Zap Brannigan?
He's great. You can tell they really liked writing for him, especially when considering how much they bring him back in the future. He only really cares about fueling his massive ego and scoring chicks. Aw yeah. So much of this episode is just letting him stand around and talk, and honestly, I couldn't be happier. I love the way they draw him too, it's hilarious. You kinda get lost in it all and forget there was a point in them seeking him out in the first place, but I don't really care, let him run wild. Makes me forget this was also the episode to introduce Nibbler. I remember that thing being all over the marketing for the show, so I assume he sticks around. Certainly not as good as the first two, but I definitely enjoyed it more than the last. This one's great. This episode explores Bender's feelings on robots being seen as second-class citizens. Being sent down to a planet inhabited by human-hating robots where Fry and Leela find out he's been using their fear to exploit them for money and fame. Not that big a fan of this one aside from some fun gags, especially by the end with the robot elders. Like, obviously Bender won't kill them. Really, it boils down to being one of those misunderstanding episodes where he doesn't realize they actually care about him. If only Bender could see that they were planning a surprise party for him right when he decided to turn on everyone. Darn it. It's cool seeing a new robot-themed planet, but that's about it for me. While it does a solid job at further establishing the bond between Army and 3, the process of getting there wasn't anything I find all too entertaining. Weakest of the batch so far.
I don't know. It's not an easy decision. If only I had 2 or 3 minutes to think about it.
Well, it sure is good today's video is sponsored by Factor to buy you some time. Factor makes meeting your nutritional goals easier than ever by delivering fresh, never frozen, dietitian-approved meals right to your doorstep, with a team of gourmet chefs creating meals using only ingredients with integrity to help you feel your best. These things are ready to eat in just 2 minutes, with you getting to choose from a weekly menu of 35 options, including Calorie Smart, Keto, Protein Plus, Vegan, and even more. There's also breakfast options, lunch snacks, and beverages. You'd never have to go to the store again, your fridge can be packed. There's even a premium gourmet option where you can get all this fancy stuff like filet mignon, shrimp, truffle butter. I've never even heard of that, but it sounds good. So with all this and more, why wouldn't you head to Factor75.com? Or click the link below and use code 50LSMARK to get 50% off your first Factor box, as well as free shipping. That's code 50LSMARK at Factor75.com for 50% off your first box. And thanks Factor for sponsoring this video. Okay, here we go, another great one. I especially like that opener where we find out people's dreams have sponsored ads in them. I guess I should have saved the sponsor for this episode, damn.
You other brothers can't deny.
You can't just sit here in the dark listening to classical music.
Fry finds out that his bank account from the 20th century has been collecting interest this whole time, making him a multi-billionaire. It's here we also meet Mom, another mainstay, one of the few villains we've been introduced to so far. This old industrialist lady who puts on a kind and innocent front but secretly wants to rule the world. It takes us through a fairly typical story of someone getting so obsessed over material things that they start to ignore all their friends. But the mom stuff really makes it more interesting. Her needing to get the last tin of anchovies Fry has to continue producing her oil products. It all comes together in a fun way. I loved Fry's constant willingness to just give away his bank PIN number, and Pamela Anderson's cameo was unexpected. Gonna be dropping this under the Zap episode.
Toodaloo! Dumbass.
What a nice lady.
I like that they specifically chose to color Leela's tank top lime green throughout the first couple minutes of the episode, just to set up this random-ass joke that was bugging the hell out of me until then.
You don't even have a sense of taste.
Honey, I wouldn't talk about taste if I was wearing a lime green tank top.
The crew find out that Bender has a passion for cooking, just sucks that he's not very good at it. This ends up veering away from being the focal point, however, as their new task takes them to a desert planet where Fry accidentally drinks the Emperor, officially making him the new one, going on a power trip and not heeding Leela's warnings about his upcoming assassination. I couldn't help but notice them reusing the whole "white people drive like this" joke from The Simpsons, and it's just as funny as it was there. I mean, he's right. We're so lame. But really, my favorite thing about it was the surprisingly emotional landing, where the only thing that can make Fry cry was thinking Leela had died trying to save him. While it's a little slow and I wish they got into it sooner instead of focusing on all the Bender cooking stuff, there's enough laughs here to have made up for it, going above the last. Oh wow, an episode that actually focuses on the professor. Surprised it took them this long. I like his little cowboy hat. After humiliating himself at his annual scientist award show, Farnsworth uses his smelloscope and finds out that the city is about to be destroyed by a giant ball of garbage. Now it's up to Fry, Leela, and Bender to try and destroy it so the professor can redeem himself. Honestly, like last time, I think it takes a little long to get to the point, but once they get to the planet, it really picks up for the last couple minutes and gets genuinely kind of intense. This is definitely the highest stakes concept they've attempted so far, and so I'm looking to see them tackle more like this. The ending made me laugh a lot too, them just pushing the problem off for another 100 years. Going right under the middle of the list.
Eat my shorts.
Okay. Shorts.
So Bender gets peer pressured into doing whatever the robot equivalent of to epic drugs is, leading to him reaching rock bottom and being reformed as a born-again, whatever the robot equivalent of a Christian is. A lot of the humor from this one is derived from finding Bender attempting to be kind and religious funny, along with many robot puns, which I didn't find myself being the biggest fan of. But the eventual reveal of the robot devil really did steal the show once he popped up, along with their depiction of hell being really cool, being placed underneath that crappy carnival attraction. All the CG, while dated, doesn't hold up too bad, especially for the time, and Homer Sampson does a great job at voicing him. The song was pretty catchy too, all things considered. For a finale, it's rather fitting, and I find the second half more than makes up for that middling opening, going around the middle of the list. Wait, okay, no, never mind, just stay here. I guess this is just a regular issue with these goddamn ranking videos, but just like American Dad, Hulu lists the episodes incorrectly. They claim season 1 only has 9 episodes when in reality, it's 13. So let's keep it going, I guess. I'd trust Wikipedia any day. Only 10 episodes in and the crew are already quitting. You know what, I can't blame them. But thankfully, to keep them around, the professor is offering them a company vacation to the Titanic, where nothing can go wrong. Wasn't expecting them to bring back Zapp Brannigan so soon, but hey, I'm for it. He makes any episode better. Leela attempting to get off his radar by claiming to be engaged to Fry. I really love Fry and Leela's dynamic here. Her being forced to be close to him, which she completely revels in, knowing she can't do anything about it, before Amy does the exact same thing with Fry to try and get her parents off her back, creating this fake love triangle that clearly makes Leela jealous. They're definitely trying to push these two together, but I'm unaware if anything actually comes of it, so I guess we'll see. They even try to expand a little upon his assistant Kip too, who ends up getting with Amy by the end. It's nothing more than a quick gag here, but I'm pretty sure that actually becomes an ongoing plot point later in the series. I can't believe I know that, but not what happens with our main two characters. This honestly might be my favorite episode so far. Along with the interesting plot, there's also a ton of great gags like with Hermie's wife and Bender's little Jack and Rose B story. It really is an amazing episode that delivers on the character drama and action. Hoping for more like this as we go on. This one has a very similar setup to the Anchovies episode, with Farnsworth taking the gang to Mars University, where he finds out his status as a college dropout is the equivalent of a high school dropout in the year 3000, re-enrolling as Bender tries to help his old fraternity get their probation lifted. You know, I feel to mention it, but it really is interesting hearing John DiMaggio's take on Bender this early on. It's so much more subdued compared to what I'm used to hearing in clips and such. The episode starts to pick up a lot after our introduction to Fry's roommate Gunther, a monkey with a hat that allows him to speak English. He's just a jerk and constantly tries to one-up Fry, which, to be fair, was funny for like a little while, I guess, but it got old. The best part usually came down to Fry's reaction. We're not really used to seeing him this antagonistic. I really love where they go with it though. Gunther buckling under all the pressure that comes with being forced to go against his instincts and act like a human. Nowhere near the best of the season, but there's a lot to like here. It's a pretty decent homage to Animal House, going above the garbage one. Zapp Brannigan returns again. This time the Planet Express crew has been drafted to take down an army of aliens planning to attack the Earth. Because Fry accidentally ruined the Fox broadcast of their favorite show, which has taken 1,000 years to reach their planet. The invasion looks cool, and I like the twist with the person they were after the whole time just being the actors from the sitcom they liked watching, resulting in them having to try and create a fake ending to satisfy them. But honestly, aside from the Omicromians who steal the show with their super direct way of speaking and literal way of interpreting things, and super on-the-nose but funny commentary at the end about audiences only wanting to watch stuff that's safe and unchallenging, it's probably gonna go down for me as one of the least memorable of Season 1. There's just too much here for a more middling episode like this to stand out. Not bad, not great. Alright, here we go, the real season finale. For real this time. In every cartoon ever's mandatory Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory parody, the crew find this bottle cap that allows them to visit the elusive Slurm factory, and party with Slurms Mackenzie. That guy rocks. Like I said, pretty average Chocolate Factory parody, but it's mainly elevated by the great jokes, and gets really good after Fry, Leela, and Bender figure out what the secret ingredient is, being this giant, disgusting Slurm queen. Okay, I don't know why this came to mind, but like, do you think there's anyone out there who's like, damn, the Slurm Queen, yeah, that's for me, you know? I mean, there's gotta be someone, right? If it's you, go to the Wait, actually don't, I don't want to know. Either way, this is a pretty good end to the season. Oh god, I looked it up, I regret it, I move on. And that's season 1 of Futurama. And damn, what a strong start to a show. Not every episode here is a winner, but like I said with the pilot, the overall package here does a fantastic job at easing you into this world, as well as managing to stand apart from The Simpsons. Again, a show this undoubtedly was going to be compared to a bunch. But hey, it seemed to work out as it got really glowing reviews, as well as strong ratings. My lowest rated episode here is Fear of a Bot Planet, and that's really because the concept didn't really offer anything new to me. While A Flight to Remember I think is amazing, using the entire cast to create this genuinely intense finale, while having the core of it still be Fry and Leela's relationship, something I really want them to focus more on as we go on. I'm also hoping to see them try and use more of the secondary cast like Hermes, Dr. Zoidberg, and even Amy, none of which get that much focus here. But honestly, I like that this first batch of episodes keeps the focus small, centered around Fry, Leela, and Bender, showing us why they work together instead of overloading the episodes with fucking billion characters, you know? Either way, I'm eager to see where they go from here. Let's continue. Season 2 opens showcasing Bender getting increasingly more jealous of the attention Nibbler has been getting, and so naturally, flushes him down the toilet. Fairly generic jealousy story, but they do their usual sci-fi spin on it, which allows it to pick up a lot. I've noticed that same formula with most of these episodes. Start with a basic sitcom plot, then push it to the extreme with a sci-fi twist. This time, the professor adds an empathy chip into his brain that can be tuned to match a specific person, Bender feeling so bad that he flushes himself down the toilet to go and find him. You know, something I've picked up on just from watching this small batch of episodes is how much this world has been figured out ahead of time. It never feels like any element of this place was just come up with on the spot for the sake of conflict. They end up finding a civilization of mutants in the sewer, which I'm 99% sure they alluded to back in Season 1. Either way, the continuity seems super strong, it's great. The jump between seasons hasn't really changed much, honestly. It's more the same, which is good because, you know, the show is good.
I have no strong feelings one way or the other.
Oh, so that's where that comes from. Zapp Brannigan gets dishonorably discharged after fucking up the Dupe headquarters during their opening, which leads to him joining the Planet Express crew for some reason, I don't know, money. I love that even though he's appeared a million times so far, they always have to introduce him as the guy Leela slept with just to rub it in, as well as his sheer hatred towards the neutrals throughout the episode. I mean, come on, dude, they have no strong feelings one way or the other. We've seen so much of Zapp and Leela that it's actually kind of refreshing to see him befriend Fry and Bender. They're fun together, even if you know he's gonna drop them the second he gets his job back, along with making everyone revolt against her. But hey, it's a pairing we haven't seen yet. I'm eager to see who else they can put him alongside in the future. Like I said before, the show has felt pretty self-contained character-wise so far, but if this episode says anything, it's that there's a lot of potential in mixing and matching these guys. Hope to see more.
Check.
Get him, boys!
Alright, now we have the Bender Gets Rich episode, after selling his entire body due to the rising cost of titanium.
Tell you what, I'll give you $50 for the kid.
Hey, my clothes are worth $50.
Deal.
After a series of headless Bender hijinks, it diverts into something more political, although it is integrated in a clever way, focusing on politics in the opening and eventually bringing in the Head Museum as Richard Nixon's head buys Bender's body to attempt to become the next president. The Twilight Zone parody made for a humorous opener, but that's about where it starts and ends for me. Some fun jokes that made me laugh, but I'm just not into American politics all that much, so all the Nixon jokes don't really do anything for me. Although with him winning the election by the end, I guess we'll be seeing more of him in the future.
You'll never have a soul. And freckles.
You know, it's bizarre to me that we've hardly seen them attempt to create any of their own future celebrities, instead of relying on all these figures from our time. I definitely prefer when they do that over this, but I do understand the gag that nobody has moved on from all these celebrities from the past, like nothing in regards to celebrity worship has ever changed. I suppose to me it's that the floating head aspect doesn't do a whole lot to make these pop culture cameos stand apart from any other show at the time. Not bad, but certainly not an aspect of this world I love. Either way, we got our first Christmas special. Xmas special, where we find out that Santa is actually this evil robot murderer, forcing everyone to stay inside over Xmas Eve. On its own, it's an alright idea, and John Goodman does a good performance as him. But I love how they use this as a way to create some conflict towards Fry's objective. It really ups the stakes knowing how dangerous and overpowered Santa is. Him and Leela have both been wallowing in their own sorrows. Fry for spending his first Christmas alone, and Leela for spending every Xmas alone. Him deciding to risk his life to try and get a gift that'll cheer her up. It manages to be a very sweet Xmas special despite all the cynicism. This is one of my favorites of the whole show, although I am wondering how long they're going to keep up this will they won't they shtick for.
Look, the food isn't what's important.
I'm so hungry.
Oh yeah, Zoidberg. Kinda forgot about him. He's consistently been the character to get the least amount of focus, mainly being used for the occasional gag here and there, none of which I find to be particularly funny, but hey, maybe this'll turn me around on him. It's here we find out that it's mating season for his species, the crew needing to take him to his home planet for the orgy of a lifetime and stuff.
Is that how you say Zoidberg?
You didn't have to call attention to his speech impediment.
It was pretty smart of them to make the first episode focusing on him explore more of his home life, showcasing how undesirable he is to his own species, with Fry becoming his wingman, which completely backfires as the crustacean of his dreams ends up falling in love with him instead. Again, it's a fairly predictable story, you've seen this conflict play out a million times, especially that misunderstanding shit, but it works, so who cares? All the gags about his weird alien species also help it stand apart. I'm mostly glad this one proved there's merit in having episodes about these seemingly more one-note members of the cast. Going around the middle.
Is today's hectic lifestyle making you tense and impatient?
Shut up and get to the point!
I appreciated the jokes about these fucking things after living in California. I had to decipher enough of them. Fry starts to get jealous after Bender befriends a robot who looks exactly like him, Flexo. Made even worse once he joins them on a mission where he has the opportunity to steal a delivery that could cause Planet Express to go bankrupt. I love this dynamic where everyone just immediately ranks him above Fry and trusts him over their good friend. This concept of an evil Bender works great. An eviler Bender, I guess. Although, with the not-so-shocking twist that it was actually their Bender who stole the atom, I suppose Flexo was actually a pretty nice guy all along. Damn, I'm gonna be dropping this one above the last. Predictable, but still good. Huh. So that's where that comes from. Damn, more holiday specials! This time it's Valentine's Day. Although surprisingly, instead of focusing on Fry and Leela like you would expect, they try to see what mileage they can get out of a Fry and Amy pairing. They actually work off each other really well. This show has been so hyper-focused on only doing the will they won't they thing with Leela that I never even considered the possibility of him being with anyone else. Honestly, his relationship with Amy feels so much more organic than him and Leela. Kinda wish they didn't dismantle it so abruptly, even if it was comical.
Don't you get it? She's smothering me.
Hi.
You see? You see?
This is all for the purpose of creating some conflict after a crash results in him having his head attached to hers. The two then attempting to see other people. It actually made me kinda glad to see them go back to Fry and Leela by the end. The climax to this one is super sweet as she comes in and saves them from having to experience Amy and her date fucking. Makes me hope for more of these relationship drama episodes in the future. This is one of the best.
Bender, honey, we love you.
Shut up, baby, I know it.
That caught me off guard way harder than it probably should have. Bender gets hired to become the newest member of the Ultimate Robot Fighting League, Leela becoming his trainer. I never really enjoyed the character becomes a professional wrestler episode of a TV show. It's more common than you think, but I feel like they all just go in the same couple directions. Like, of course Bender gets fame hungry and abandons the people who helped him get to where he is, until his morals are put to the test when he's asked to throw a fight. It's far from bad and there's a lot of funny moments in here, but in a season as good as this, it definitely goes down as one of the weakest. I find the way they tied it back to Leela's childhood pretty underwhelming as well. The best aspect, though, has to be that Hermes just has this mind-controlling parasite throughout the entire episode that nobody does anything about. I think that's the most they've done with him in this whole series so far.
Hey,
Thank God I'm free of that nightmare!
sorry, buddy. Here you go.
I love their depiction of the internet here, even if it is so horribly dated. I guess that's the sort of thing that sticks out when you make a show that's supposed to take place in the distant future. But there's such a certain charm to it. God, imagine if this show came out today, the future would be completely white and minimalist. Anyways, while online, Leela meets another Cyclops who wants her to come to his planet. Which looks great, by the way. The backgrounds are so fleshed out and I love the colors, especially those clouds. And I would say it's cool getting to learn more about her race's backstory, if it weren't so obviously a trick to get her to be with him, immediately turning into a jerk the second she sleeps with him in this big old Married with Children homage. They even designed Leela to look like her voice actress' character in that show.
How far away do you think it is?
A trillion miles?
Him being a shapeshifter was a fun twist, but that's about it. Not a fan of this one, unfortunately. Drags on a bit, especially in the middle. Okay, thank God we're getting this out of the way early. In seeing screenshots and clips from this show, I always wondered what the hell this little chubby Fry clone was. Turns out, he's a clone. It's Professor Farnsworth's 150th birthday, which makes him feel insecure about his age. And so to combat this, he creates a clone of himself to inherit his legacy, Qbert. He's basically just Gunther, except he gets on the nerve of the whole crew, being this snot-nosed brat who thinks they're all losers. I feel like I typically find this kind of episode annoying, but as a matter of fact, I enjoyed it a lot, especially their depiction of death. But I'm mostly surprised they kept Qbert around by the end. I guess killing a kid might be a tad too far. I could see a lot of people hating this character, but I surprisingly ended up liking this episode a lot. Maybe it's because they're constantly shitting on him, and that old people retirement factory was a great ending set piece, going around the middle. Was not expecting them to bring back Leela's old co-workers from the pilot. Damn.
It's too late! The inspector will be here in exactly 1 second! Who the hell are you?
Finally, a Hermes episode. Took him long enough. He's forced to leave. Damn. Now there's a new bureaucrat to manage them all who falls in love with Fry, just like the Zoidberg episode, noticing a pattern. After Bender catches them in the act, she steals his memory and hides it in her government building. Now it's up to them to get it back. You know, for being the first episode to revolve around Hermes, it sure does feel at revolving around Hermes. Not that it makes it bad or anything, more so that I was actually looking forward to seeing what they were going to do with this character that's done next to nothing throughout the past season and a half. Even if he does save the day by the end, it felt as if there could have been more. Fairly average episode by Season 2 standards, going near the bottom of the list.
I'm going to jump!
Oh! Do a flip!
Huh. So that... Damn, what's with all these episodes about Fry kicking ass at getting the ladies? This time he falls in love with a mermaid from the lost city of Atlantis, which, if the title couldn't make any more clear, is basically the South.
Hey, Bender! I just caught a fish this big!
Quit exaggerating, Fry.
I don't know, I think this episode kinda sucks. The idea of Fry falling in love with a mermaid just kinda borders on being too stupid for me, like, no shit, it's not gonna work out. And nothing done with the plot is all that creative. And the underwater setting, while visually neat, just doesn't do enough to make it stand out to me. I mean, sure, it's got good jokes, but so does every episode. Bottom of the list. Surprised to see the return to that plot point of Bender having a fondness for cooking, although it's once again sidelined halfway through as he winds up joining the robot mafia.
He's picking his nose! Get him!
Damn, unfortunately I'm not big on this one either. Leela's blind bee story wasn't the strongest, and the only mafia bot I liked was the guy who kept going on about the clamps. Another weak one, sadly. I was just about to say it was shocking we haven't seen Mom in a while, considering she's one of the show's only antagonists. But she finally returns on Mother's Day, a day where all the robots in the city come together to celebrate and shower her with gifts. You know, she looks like a Bob Burger character.
Yepsy daisy.
Oh.
Takes a pretty extreme turn early on as she puts all the robots on rebel mode. Is there a difference in saying rebel or rebel? I don't know. I was pretty blown away to see them bring back this random-ass throwaway line from that Farnsworth clone episode, where it was established he used to work at her factory, us finding out that he was her one true love, and leaving her was what made her into the heartless asshole she is today. I'm impressed they actually managed to make you feel kinda bad for her. Kinda. I enjoyed this one a lot. Not as many laugh-out-loud moments as the average episode so far, but I think the story more than makes up for it. I only wish we could have seen more of these two interacting aside from the last couple minutes. Hoping they return to this dynamic more in the future. There's a lot of untapped potential here. Solid episode, going around the middle. The gang find and start selling these little poplar things that people can't resist, before finding out they're actually Omicronian babies. Damn, all the antagonists are coming back. Now they want reparations for every child that's been eaten, which is pretty much everyone. It's an entertaining take on a story we've seen time and time again. Them deciding to let the people live if they're at least allowed to eat Leela. Them making this giant spectacle of it with a live broadcast in a stadium. The problem with poplars is one of the best of the season. And don't just take my word for it. Let's check in on our good pal Tyler Kingston to see what he thinks. I guess he's done this for every fucking show out there. I can't escape this guy. Overall, I give this episode a 10 out of 10, which in my readings book is freaking redonkulous. Thanks, Tyler. Please comment on one of these videos. I'd like for you to review one of these in the future. Thanks. Oh no! If you know anything about me, it's that I really hate anthology episodes. They're so fucking common in all these cartoons, and I don't know why. I mean, I know why. It's gotta be hard to come up with episode ideas, even if we aren't at 30 yet. But with Futurama, you know what? Doesn't bother me that much from a conceptual level. Depends what they do with it, of course. I don't want to see fucking, I don't know, Jack and the Beanstalk, but with Futurama characters or something. Mark, this is you from the future. I've come to warn you. About what? I forget. Great. So the first segment showcases everything the exact same way, but what if Bender were 500 feet tall? Alright. Feels like they get as much mileage out of that as they possibly could. I feel like with a series that has the potential to be as out there as Futurama, it would be best to avoid anthology storylines that would fit just as well if they were regular episodes. You know, you gotta go way out there, but as is, it just feels rather redundant. Second is a little more interesting as Layla looks into a reality where she's more impulsive, which leads to her killing the entire Planet Express crew, but that's really it. Nothing more is done beyond that initial murder mystery idea, you know, it's okay. They certainly left the best till last. It's actually a cool what-if scenario, that being what would happen if Fry never got cryogenically frozen and sent to the future, which completely messes up the space-time continuum, finding out that it needed to happen for the sake of the entire universe. Them putting the number 1 in the title implies they already plan on this being a mainstay, and the what-if machine is a solid plot device to continue making it happen, but I'm hoping they go more out there in the future. Fry and Bender enroll in the army so they can get military discounts, but right as they sign, war is declared, sending them off to fight with Leela joining disguised as a boy. This one has an extremely predictable plot as well, and unfortunately I don't find it to have enough memorable moments or gags to make up for it. That Mulan trope where the egotistical ladies' man character thinks they're gay after falling in love with the girl in disguise has been done a million times, and sadly, this one doesn't do a whole lot to stand out. Some of the background design is cool and I like their war outfits, but that's it. I think I like the Mermaid episode more than this one. After Bender's uncle dies, they have to spend a Scooby-Doo-esque night in this haunted manor in order to receive it from the will. I appreciate the composer trying to adopt that music style as well, it's rather charming. This is almost immediately abandoned as Bender gets hit by a car and turns into, where car? What? You know, for as dumb as that sounds initially, it somehow makes sense once you think about it. They get the atmosphere down really well, and the episode is filled with a ton of creative shots. That transformation sequence was surprisingly well animated and probably plays into somebody's fetish. Again, don't comment if that's you, I'd rather not know. Overall, this is a good episode. Nowhere near my favorite, but for as weird of an idea as it is, they make it work. Season 2 ends with a concept I love. I mentioned it at the start of the first season, but Season 2 certainly marked a turn in which the show stopped focusing as much on Fry being a guy from the 20th century who's come to the future. It's mostly just used for the occasional throwaway gag here and there. But when they actually focus on it for a storyline, it winds up creating many of my favorite moments, and this finale is no exception, as Fry finds out that his ex-girlfriend from the start of the pilot has also been cryogenically frozen and sent to the future. We get to learn a little more about what happened to her after Fry left. Also, the depressing fact that nobody gave a shit after he went missing. I appreciate these little bits of lore we get sprinkled in, along with getting to see another human from the year 2000 get taken to the future. It's like we get a small glimpse at the progression Fry's made over the course of the past 2 seasons, no longer batting an eye at all this crazy future stuff while she's completely freaked out, wanting her and Fry to go a further 1,000 years into the future together. She's a complete asshole and ruins everything for him by never being satisfied. I think that's the only thing holding it back, how one-note she is. But for the purpose of reaching a conclusion that gets rid of her, I still think this is a great finale that reestablishes Fry being better off in the future than the present. I mean, better off in the present than, the past. This sucks. Season 2 of Futurama was even better than the first. Simply by proxy of there being more episodes, means some of those were undoubtedly gonna go near the bottom of the list. But even still, I think there's something to like about every one of these. Again, I hear Futurama for the most part is consistently good, so I'm curious what episodes fans consider bad. War's the H Word is at the bottom of the list just for not having anything all that memorable about it, story or joke-wise. Well, to put your head on my shoulders at the top. Mainly for doing something different with a romantic pairing that's not just Fry and Leela again, while still managing to show why they're good for each other by the end. I wonder if the show will ever try to adopt more serialized elements, maybe Fry and Leela will get together at some point. And we can see how that works for longer than just a 22-minute period. Either way, a few episodes into airing this season, Fox made a pretty big decision. That was to move the time slot away from airing after The Simpsons, which ended up having serious ramifications on its ratings. Pretty much being cut in half, which, if you couldn't tell, is bad. I'm not sure why this decision was made, but I can already see this probably resulted in the show getting cancelled so soon. But we still have another 2 seasons to go until then. Curious to see what Season 3 will bring. I've heard a few times now that Season 3 is some of Futurama's best, so I got pretty high expectations going into this. This opening chooses to expand more on Kif of all characters, him being unable to express his feelings towards Amy. I know I said I liked her and Fry a lot, but Kif, despite not doing much notable so far throughout the show, managed to win me over here. I like him a lot, especially next to Zap. Things don't stay pleasant for too long as their restaurant crash lands on a planet entirely inhabited by caveman-like women. I recognize their species design from a previous episode. Again, they really had a lot of this figured out. It's neat to see expanded upon. I guess the boy-girl stereotype is aged pretty poorly. The boys love sex and disrespecting women while all they care about are superficial stuff like their wit. And I guess all the is a tad unsettling. It really is crazy what they've been able to get away with so far. But I think it's funny enough to turn a blind eye to. In fact, I think this is one of the funniest episodes yet. There's so many hilarious moments throughout.
Take them to the snoo chambers!
This was a way better opener than Season 2's. Hoping it's a sign of things to come. So everyone shrinking is good enough for a normal episode, but getting bigger needs to be saved for the anthology? I don't get it! Not even taking place in the future can save the show from the mandatory cast needs to go inside one of the main character's body stories that every cartoon to ever exist has done. Although here it's tied back to Fry's way more outwardly expressed feelings towards Leela, him being unaware of this whole mission as he goes on what he thinks is a date with her. They're just so pleasant together, I like them a lot. It's visually fantastic too, no wonder the board artist won an Emmy for it. I'm shocked they actually made me enjoy one of these tired, fantastic Voyage episodes. Mainly because they abandoned that halfway through to focus more on Fry and Leela's new relationship, her preferring what he's become with the parasitic worms. It sucks though, she finally reciprocates his love, but he'll never know if she loves him for him, or what the worms made him. Not a sentence I ever expected to say. Well, the previous is funnier. I prefer this one for the character drama. The ending's really heartwarming too. Season 3 has hit the ground running. Another Xmas episode so soon. Dude, it is so annoying following along on Hulu. They list this shit in Season 4. Doesn't it take more effort to rearrange them all stupid like this? Maybe it's the airing order they're going by. Things were pretty muddied throughout these seasons. This one in particular getting delayed a full year due to scheduling conflicts. John Goodman, doesn't reprise his role as Santa, as Bander takes over, attempting to deliver all the world's presents in one night, which goes about as well as you'd expect. Seeing the dark and depressing depiction of the North Pole was neat and the song was catchy, but that's about it. You forget it's even an Xmas special after all the courtroom stuff comes in as Bender gets framed for Santa's rampages. Some good jokes, but definitely not as strong as the previous Xmas special. I hate having to type Xmas every time, I keep forgetting. What the fuck? I wasn't expecting to get hit in the feels so soon. This is the sort of story I've been waiting for, us finally getting a deeper look into Fry's life in the 20th century, particularly the rocky relationship between he and his brother. He remembers a 7-leaf clover that he used to have that gave him good luck, and so now he's gotta go get it back from his old house. This method of switching between the past and present, the future and, the present and future, you feel like would hurt the pacing, but all it ends up doing is excellently building up to that eventual reveal of the clover being missing, him finding out that his brother not only stole it, but assumed his entire life after he was gone. Now he's gotta rob his grave to get it back. I love that we get to see his parents' actual reaction to his disappearance, showing that they did indeed miss him, unlike what his ex-girlfriend says. Made even more emotional when we get to the incredibly sad ending, where Fry finds out this isn't his brother, it's his nephew. His brother named his son after Fry out of nothing but love and admiration for his little brother. It makes me kinda grateful that they rarely do ones focusing on his past now. It makes it hit harder when they do. I feel like I ended up just describing the episode beat by beat, but really anything I can say about it is best explained by just watching it. No, really, go watch it. It's the best episode so far, second to none. Honestly, probably one of the best episodes of any adult cartoon. So go on, watch it. Video will still be here when you get back. Take your time. Why not make a sandwich? Comment what kind of sandwich you made. Newly promoted Captain Bender crashes a ship of dark matter into an ice planet Leela is volunteering at to help the penguins living there. This is without a doubt the weakest so far. This is the only episode where Bender actually got on my nerves a little, being a constant power-hungry asshole to Fry and then immediately wallowing in misery once he's had enough and quits before having to come back to rescue him over a situation that he himself caused. That's not expected from this show, but I don't know, despite his turnaround by the end, this time it just didn't work for me. Aside from a couple fun moments from Zoidberg, I thought this episode sucked. Bender acting like a penguin isn't that hilarious of a concept to me. By the way, how was the sandwich? Comment how you're sick.
Let's rock.
Bender's been sleep bending, which leads to him getting fired and getting a new job at a steel factory during a strike. It's here we're reintroduced to Flexo, didn't expect his return so soon. Just as chill as ever, apparently. Conflict arises, however, as he fears that Flexo's been trying to steal the affection of his girlfriend. Was nice seeing Bender actually show genuine affection for someone, for as short-lived as it is. Wasn't as into the mafia stuff being brought back into it, even if it was set up well. Other than that, not much to say, it's a decent episode. Favorite part might be just how far he was willing to try and catch her in the act. She was nothing but nice the whole time. Okay, scratch that. This is my favorite part. What the fuck is going on there? Bandless Love is going around the What? That's the pickaxe from Fortnite. Huh, so that's where that comes from. No, really, that thing used to appear in the ads to my Simpsons movie DVD as a kid. I had no idea what the fuck it was. A group of evil space brains zap away everyone's, all except Fry for some reason. But there's no time to worry about that, as Nibbler reveals he actually has some level of intelligence by helping Leela escape to his home planet. You know, I'm just now realizing Nibbler is played by Frank Welker. He's just doing his Curious George voice. I'll never be able to unhear that now. Cool getting to see more of his race, even if I'm not typically a fan of the trope of the stupid little animal character actually being ultra badass and cool. Again, all this stuff I'm usually not into surprisingly works in a show like this. The future setting really is the perfect scapegoat for any plot they want to do. Then going into all the classic books is a neat ending set piece too. I'm gonna be dropping this onto the Amazonian one. I like this drawing of Fry. More Zoidberg. It's interesting how much attention they give him over Hermes and Amy, but hey, I'm for it, he's grown on me. Unfortunately, this might be the worst episode of the show so far, it sucks, as his famous comedian Uncle Zoid requests he come to Hollywood to fund his struggling film career. Since they make it evident from the very beginning that his uncle is only using him for money, you're just waiting for the moment in which Zoidberg finally finds out what we've known from the start. Which, he never does. We're meant to feel sympathy for the uncle by the end. This episode fucking sucks. There's just nothing to latch onto. I don't give a shit about anything going on here, so throughout 95% of the runtime, I'm just waiting for it to be over. I really hope this character never returns. Cool to learn more about Leela's backstory, us seeing her orphan life and how much she used to be made fun of, with one of her old bullies offering to give her a surgery that fixes the whole one eye thing.
I'm sure Leela's tired of morons gaping at her eye all the time. Oh.
Although maybe it's just from being so used to how she looked before, or maybe it's from how tilted upwards they are, but she looked weirder with two eyes. Am I alone on that? Bander's adoption story is where I find most enjoyment from. Him genuinely growing attached to them, it's oddly sweet. Like a better version of the penguin one. I like this episode a bunch. And they tap back to the Leela stuff well at the end. Tom Kenny does a great performance as her douchebag boyfriend, going near the top of the list. It's finally time for Kif to meet Amy's parents in their ranch on Mars. Even though I'm pretty sure they were the ones to introduce her to him on that Titanic episode. Huh. But I'm unfortunately not that into this one either. I find her parents really annoying, which is clearly on purpose, but it doesn't make me like them anymore. And I find the wimpy character tries to impress their partner's parents so predictably boring. I think last time I had tried watching through Futurama, I picked this episode at random and was so unimpressed that I quit then and there. Kif and Amy still work well together, the scenes of them talking are probably the best thing about it. But other than that, I think this one is fairly weak. Not even Zap can see of it, going on to the Christmas episode. Xmas. So Bander and Fry get blamed for a bank robbery, which leads to them pleading insanity and getting sent to a robot insane asylum. Dude, I feel so bad for Fry throughout this episode. He's unjustly tortured for half the runtime. Usually, I could see the humor and how uncomfortable all this is, but it doesn't really stop it from being, well, uncomfortable. I think Fry's slow descent into insanity is just played too straight, and the transition to him actually believing himself to be a robot happens so fast that it's mainly just jarring. I didn't like this one at all, one of my least favorite of season 3 so far. This episode contains the biggest lore reveal of all. Hermes has a son. That was unexpected, genuinely. The boys start their own business that does well enough for them to buy the Planet Express, Fry, Leela, and Bender becoming their employees. This is another that I'm not all that into. It's so soon after they take over that we find out it was all a scam and they need to team up with their dads to fix things, in the most anticlimactic way possible. Hoping we don't have many more starring these two, they're not that interesting or funny. But hey, who could forget the memorable Sick. But hey, who could forget the memorable Bender pregnancy storyline? The joke is, it's beer. After breaking himself in a freak accident, Bender becomes an inspiration for robots around the world by joining a band as the washboard player. Unfortunately, I didn't really care for this one either. The B story with the crew following their tour and having nothing but bad luck has no real depth to it whatsoever, and isn't funny enough to make up for it. You know, I still wouldn't say any episode has been bad so far, which is seriously impressive nearly 50 into this. Well, okay, maybe that Zoidberg one. But the worst so far to me have consistently been the ones that feel like they're doing a story any other show could do without a substantially different take on it given the future setting. His followers just being robots doesn't do much for me. He also infuriatingly chooses to not explain himself at the end, even though he was pretty much valid up until the night before the big show. Going near the bottom, pretty mediocre. Last song was good. Season 3 thankfully picks up once again with a hilariously dumb reverse on Space Jam, where the Harlem Globetrotters come down to challenge everyone to a basketball match, and so the crew have got to raise a group of mutants to beat them. I wasn't expecting them to take it in such a high-concept scenario given the stupid-ass setup, as time starts rapidly jumping and they gotta figure out what's going on. This is an insanely creative episode that also manages to be really funny, moving at such a fast pace that it's honestly hard to keep a track of what's going on at times, along with them finally making an effort to progress things with Leela and Fry, her trying to let him down gently before time skips forward and they're already married, neither of who knowing how it happened. So then they immediately divorce. It's moving so fast that it almost makes you wish this could have been a 45-minute special or something, but what's here is fantastic and the ending is super sad. This is another case of Season 3 really nailing these character dynamics. One of my favorites. Going from such a sweet Fry and Leela story to him getting with the robot clone of Lucy Liu, sure, why not? They actually got the actress to voice her too, damn. This is a much lower stakes adventure, but still a neat futuristic take on internet piracy, being able to illegally download any celebrity. This one's going around the middle of the list, it's a cool one. Little too much Lucy Liu inflation for my liking, though. I can't believe this show was smart enough to predict people dating robots in the future, but didn't have the foresight to consider that Napster would no longer exist. This episode sucks. The gang helping out this new alien family turn around their feeling pizzeria quickly diverts into Leela becoming the first ever woman Blernsball player, for the sake of spectacle. Cool.
Hey, come on. Ooh.
Sorry. I win.
Aside from a few amusing visual gags, this is one of the worst so far. The first half just never feels like it has any direction. Suddenly she cares about setting a good example for little girls. I just don't give a shit. I think I hate this more than the Zoidberg one, at least that had more going on. This is so boring. After worrying that he won't be remembered after his death, the gang get captured as Egyptian slaves where Bender becomes their new pharaoh. Honestly, I didn't really care for this one either despite the unique setting. It's yet another Bender power trip romp. We've seen so many of these already, even if this is by far the concept pushed to its extreme, having an entire civilization of people worshipping him. But I just didn't find it funny enough to stand out amongst the other episodes in the season. I guess that's the issue when you have one with as much good as this. Again, I have no idea what fans think about half these episodes. Maybe this is considered like a fucking classic or something, I don't know, sue me. Episode 50, first big milestone. What are they gonna do with it? This doesn't really work when the title gets shown first. Unless you're only listening to this, in which... Oh, god damn it, it's another anthology, which I just realized right this second. Damn.
Eat it, everyone who's never won a Nobel Prize, and that includes you, Amy.
So many jokes in this show are just characters getting overly upset at a mean comment, and it still gets me every time. Thankfully, I find the what-ifs to be a lot more interesting this time around. First, we got Bender becoming a human. You know, his design is not what I was expecting. I thought this guy was Mexican. Second, sees Fry living life if it were more like a video game. Or at least a video game from the perspective of a writer who's only played games from 5 decades ago. Isn't this just the plot of Pixels? And finally, we have Leela finding her true home, which winds up just being a lame Wizard of Oz parody. Can't all be winners, I suppose. Shockingly, I actually like this anthology. Although, if anything, it just makes me sad that I wasted this Bender becoming a human ID on a 8-minute segment instead of a full episode. Felt like there was a lot more potential there. But you know, weird, it's almost like picking intriguing topics makes anthologies more entertaining. Who could have guessed? The crew accidentally gets sent back in time, with the government at Area 51 searching for them, Zoidberg being the first case of an alien landing on Earth. Now they've got to find a microwave within 24 hours to get back. Fry meeting his grandfather was cool, although him accidentally getting him killed and needing to fuck his grandmother in order to exist was slightly less cool.
Of course she's your grandmother, you perverted dope! Look!
This episode won an Emmy, and it's easy to see why. Everything about it is amazing. The jokes, the severity of the situation, how cleverly all the history stuff ties together, especially the full circle ending. This one is super similar to that Globetrotter one. I'd probably say I enjoyed that one slightly more just for being funnier, but it is slightly. They're both fantastic. Damn, what is this? Amazing episodes back to back. Space pirates attack, leading to Fry and Leela accidentally shooting Bender through space, with his body beginning to inhabit these tiny little creatures who worship him as a god. It's not the most hilarious around, but Godfellas mostly succeeds at showcasing an inventive yet not terribly in-your-face satire on religion and worship. Bender growing attached to the Shrimpkins and watching in horror as they split off based on their beliefs and wind up killing each other over religious differences. When you do things right, people won't be sure you've done anything at all, is a quote that genuinely goes hard.
Maybe if I hug him real hard, he'll save us from...
I wouldn't have minded if they focused the entire thing around this without the need for the Fry and Leela B-story. A rare time I would have appreciated a slower, more casual approach. But overall, this is another terrific one. Some really nice colors at the end, too. Planet Express is at threat of going under, and so they hire a CEO who's traveled from the 1980s to help with their finances.
The first order of business is to blame everything on the guy before me. Professor?
I'll ruin you like I ruined this company!
Terrific.
The last couple being so good may make this one seem a little worse by comparison, but it's still got a lot of good jokes. And the businessman, while clearly a one-note jerk, pushes Fry into a position of power we rarely see him in, which I thought was interesting. And it's always nice seeing Mom again, her eventually buying the company and firing everyone. Biggest complaint would probably be its fairly underwhelming ending compared to what we've seen from her previously, but still alright. Going around the middle, maybe a bit below. Dude, this is literally 1984. We end on Bender running away and getting cooking lessons from this star chef. Helmut Spargle. Eventually joining a televised cooking contest and needing to win and junk. This is a bad one to finish with, there's not much notable here. Also not a fan of how disconnected the B story is, as Zoidberg feels guilty after blaming Fry for breaking one of the professor's things. Like, sure, whatever, it's something from a baby cartoon for babies. I thought I was watching Futurama, not Bluey. Fuck that dog. Is it a dog? It just takes way too long to get to the point. Both stories not kicking off until the episode is already halfway over. On its own, it ain't bad or anything. I actually like how much the guilt consumes Zoidberg when in reality Fry doesn't give a shit. That ain't enough to make it stand out, sadly. This is without a doubt the best season so far. Sure, there's more episodes than last in here that I didn't like at all, but it's more than balanced out by all the amazing ones. In fact, 4 out of my top 5 episodes of the overall ranking come from Season 3. It's weird, there's such a contrast between my favorite and least favorite. Similarly, 4 out of the 5 episodes on the bottom of my ranking is from this season too. I'd probably say Season 1 and 2 of Futurama are more consistent quality-wise throughout, but the episodes I do like are fantastic and just too good not to recognize. Still though, only 50 episodes in and only really like 2 that I would consider as being flat out bad. That's an accomplishment, really. Season 4 was the final season before the Fox cancellation, so I'm curious if there was any dip in quality that led to that or if it was purely ratings. Let's find out. You know, I failed to acknowledge the janitor. Season 4 kicks off with more meal pregnancy. Yay! Kif gets pregnant after sharing DNA with someone. Oh, not in that way, get your mind out of the gutter.
Now to take a DNA sample.
Drama arises, however, when the question comes up. If all he has to do to get pregnant is touch someone, then what's to say it couldn't be anyone else on the ship? I love this being the most extreme way to create conflict out of Amy claiming earlier in the episode there's still more she wants to do in life before settling down. Her trying her best to not tell him that she's not ready to have a kid, especially not after finding out it belongs to Leela, which everyone is completely cool with. Wish Amy didn't run away, taking a backseat for the third act, especially since we don't get to see her turn around at all, she just kinda shows up again with all her feelings figured out. But still, I enjoyed this opener. It's pretty wild how consistent Futurama has been for 4 seasons straight. Maybe it's just me, but you could completely rearrange every episode we've looked at so far, and I wouldn't be able to tell you which season it came from. Which I guess is good considering half of them were aired out of order. Kif and Amy have kids now though, wonder how often that's gonna come back up. You know, a bunch of these episodes were written by Bob Odenkirk's brother. It's all I think about when I see his credit. It's finally time to learn about Leela's backstory. Turns out I was right, those characters back from the Season 2 premiere were her parents, living as mutants down in the sewers of Old New York. Wow, can't believe I'm the only person to ever notice that. I love how quickly they let the audience in on it, leaving you to wait for the moment in which they can finally meet as they try their best to avoid her. They do such a good job at making you think she might not get to them in time, while sprinkling in small teases towards the eventual reveal that Leela actually isn't an alien, but instead a mutant. Her parents not wanting her to feel the shame that comes with the stigma that label brings, believing that if they were to give her up, she could have a better life. It gets seriously sad at points. Them thinking it's a gift that she'll never have to know that they're her parents. Like, what the fuck? That's depressing. They would rather her fucking shoot them than tell the truth. Even still, I'm happy they had their interaction by the end be very short and sweet. Way more effective that way. Curious to see if they'll be brought back anytime soon since there's no bullshit ending that once again separates them. Was genuinely not expecting that and only makes me like it more. Also, one of the best endings out of the whole series. I'm so impressed at how well Futurama manages to balance the comedy with the super sappy, sincere stuff, without one taking away from the other. One of the best of the entire series, without a doubt. If I didn't just down 2 cups of coffee before watching, I was seriously gonna consider taking their challenge posed in the opening of drinking every time a robot appears on screen. Think I'd like to not have a heart attack today, sorry.
We're off to the most romantic city on Earth!
Turns out the Planet Express ship has been sentient this entire time. What a coincidence too, as it's Valentine's Day, with Bender falling in love with it after it gets a personality upgrade. And by personality upgrade, I mean it's not just voiced by Sigourney Weaver. I usually don't like major motivation shifts happening for no reason between scenes, but in this case, I couldn't help but laugh after they follow up a heartfelt montage with him deciding he's sick of her. Her naturally then going mad and trying to kill them all in a big Space Odyssey parody. I find Fry's short subplot pretty underwhelming, one of the weakest romance stories they have done with him and Leela. Him just trying to find the right love heart that represents his feelings towards her, nothing remarkable. Especially considering how quickly it gets forgotten before the admittedly heartfelt ending. Also, I haven't commented on the show's score much, but the track that plays during the ending montage was great. Enjoyed it more than the Kif one. The Friends gag got me more than it probably should have. But it doesn't even hold a candle to the last.
Look, Morris, it's Leela calling.
Hi, Mom. Hi, Dad.
Damn, okay, sure, go for it. You know, I was not expecting this show to do one of those main characters get superpowers tropes, but again, if there were a show to get away with it, it would be this one. After using a miracle cream that gives humans superpowers, Fry, Leela, and Bender team up to form a new hero team, thankfully being a parody of the more silly comic book heroes rather than the dark, gritty ones that would plague the genre just a few years later. Still though, I don't think it takes advantage of the trope enough to be seen as anything more than okay, them focusing much more on the double life angle with Leela having to choose her family or her responsibilities. Definitely my least favorite so far, I didn't really care for this one at all. The best thing about it are the admittedly fun costumes, though overall it feels like a big waste for this to be the episode that follows up on Leela's parents.
We can stand erect with proud upthrust bosoms.
Anyone who laughs is a communist.
So Zoidberg is sent to death after eating the Earth flag. To which, kinda it. I guess the satire about people getting so up in arms about desecrating a flag, even if said flag is a representation for freedom to do what you want, is amusing, but you get the joke by the 5-minute mark. The rest never feels like it knows where to go with it, trying to make things more and more extreme without actually finding its footing. Zoidberg refuses to apologize for his beliefs, which leads to his species going to war with the Earth before going back on his beliefs and enslaving everyone. Doesn't feel like there was much of a point to any of this. Damn, these Zoidberg episodes really peaked with the first one. So, you know, what's going on with Hermes? Immediately got red flags after the first act focused on Qbert and Hermes' son. I can't be bothered remembering his name. But thankfully it diverts into becoming about Bender getting a job on the crew's favorite show and becoming hugely controversial for his offensive attitude.
And try this, kids at home!
There's a lot of good comedy in their satirizing of TV executives, but I would have expected them to try and have the message of parents being responsible for what their kids watch. Instead, it seemingly goes for the message of celebrities and shows being responsible for their influence on kids, before completely shifting out of nowhere at the end and indeed saying the opposite. I guess all this would make more sense if Bender got a role in a kid show, but no, it was like a drama or something. Some good jokes, but that's it. Anyways, hey kids, try this. This is one of the only episodes I'd seen of Futurama before. In fact, it was the first I'd ever seen. You know why, everybody knows this one. The sad dog episode. It's funny how this and Luck of the Fryrish are considered some of the series' best because they both follow an incredibly similar structure. After Fry uncovers the remains of his old dog Seymour, we cut back and forth seeing what led to him being there, along with Fry excited at the prospect of the professor cloning him. I think the Bender jealousy stuff works much better here than it did back in that Nibbler one, him being worried that with Fry getting his old best friend back he won't want to hang out with him anymore, trying to sabotage their attempt. Not that you need me to say it, but the ending is so fucking depressing. Fry eventually gets the chance to clone him before realizing that he lived another 12 years after he was frozen. Him figuring that Seymour would have long forgotten him after he went missing, and finally deciding to let him go. Before we end in a prolonged shot revealing that Seymour never forgot him. Waiting in the same place for Fry to return every single day for every one of those 12 years. Oh god. When I really sit and think about it, it does feel a tad cheap in a way. Like they fucking knew an idea like this would be a guaranteed tearjerker, but it doesn't make it any less amazing. One of their best, no contest. They definitely made the right move in having it be his dog rather than his mum like initially planned. I think I enjoy Luck of the Fryrish more overall. I could probably go either way on any given day, but I have to keep reminding myself that obviously the sad dog one is gonna get to me more. They end on a close-up of him fucking dying for Christ's sake. You know, Luck of the Fryrish features an uplifting ending about the love between siblings rising above any rocky relationship they seemingly had. But the sad dog one is a sad dog. I can't believe this lost the Emmy to Three Gays in a Condo. What the fuck were they smoking over there? Boy, I feel bad for the episode that has to follow that up. Especially a global warming episode. Boring. I'm joking, of course. Global warming episodes are only mostly boring. With Futurama's take exposing that it was caused by the professor's first robot, every single bot now having to be destroyed. Bender being so attached to a turtle that he's willing to let himself die for the sake of humanity was extremely out of character. Well, never mind. Okay, with how often they do these Bender goes soft stories, I guess it isn't that out of character. But it's sweet. Mainly brought down by just not being all that funny or memorable overall, going near the bottom.
I love life and its pleasures as much as anyone here, except perhaps you, hedonism bot.
Oh, I recognize that character from a Simpsons Cudge gag. In an attempt to de-age the professor, everyone is accidentally turned back into teenagers. I like that they didn't just use it for one-note gags treating the crew as a collective. Instead, they put the attention onto Leela as she uses this opportunity to have the childhood experiences she never got to with her parents. Damn, they're utilizing them a lot now, that's cool.
Let's all have some tequila to celebrate!
Dad, I'm underage!
Ah, right. Here's a silly straw.
They really have fun with the setup. I like Fry and Leela's date scene a bunch, and them continuing to DH to the point of potentially being unborn was a visually creative conflict. All things considered, this is a much more chill episode. Might not be as spectacular as others we've seen, but I still liked it a bunch. Going near the top. Oh dude, this is a fantastic topic to explore, with Fry finally wondering if his life might have been better off if he had stayed in the 21st century after feeling underappreciated, out of place, and especially saddened that Leela shows no interest in him.
And I have other amazing powers as well.
Like what?
They bring back a ton of shit here from a bunch of different episodes. Nibbler taking Fry to his home planet where we find out the reason he wasn't affected by the Brain aliens a while back was because him fucking his own grandmother gave him a genetic immunity, not needing to help them fend off the Brians once again. They even tie it all the way back to the pilot. The Brians informing Fry that the entire reason Fry was even sent to the future was because Nibbler was Icy Wiener all along. Aw, crud. And pushed the chair over so he could eventually help them in the future. I love the genuine moral dilemma put in place here. Fry knowing he could go back in time and stop himself from being sent to the future, knowing the catastrophe it causes won't affect him. Obviously, we all know he's gonna choose to stay and help Nibbler, but it's more about the journey than the destination in this case. Fry finally getting the choice as to whether or not he goes. On its own, I like Jurassic Bark more, but the Why of Fry sure does an excellent job at showcasing the potential of Futurama tackling more serialized adventures that build upon seemingly inconsequential plot points from previous seasons. Even cooler, this was apparently planned from the very beginning, with Nibbler's shadow being visible in the background of the pilot. Really fantastic episode here. Hope it's not the only time they attempt this. Pretty sure this is the first to start in the midst of the main conflict as we flash back to see how we got here. All we know is Fry is on trial for doing something involving the cast of Star Trek.
Please recount the events that led you to be guilty.
I've never seen much Star Trek, only a couple Next Generation episodes, so I'm positive I can't appreciate this as much as someone who's a fan. But it works fine from a newbie's perspective. Fry going on a journey with Spock to find the band's 79 episodes, leading to them meeting the cast and going to war with the creature who's captured them. As someone who doesn't really care about Star Trek, I don't really care, to be blunt. I find the flashback angle fairly pointless, especially them continuously switching who's telling it. They were all there and none of them add anything to what we're seeing. Feels like it was written by a fan making all the jokes they could about the series and its cast. Star Trek fans probably like it, but sadly that ain't me. The crew are sent out on a mission to retrieve some honey. Fry dies. Even little Seymour showed up to his funeral, ugh. It turns into this big drug allegory, where Leela starts eating the bee honey that causes her to hallucinate, where she's able to meet him in her dreams.
Is this some sort of brain scanner?
Some sort, yes. In France, it's called a guillotine.
I really love how seriously it's all presented. It's a genuine mystery as she goes crazy believing that some essence of Fry must still be out there somewhere, before the guilt consumes her, you never being able to tell when she is and isn't in a dream. Season 4 really has been full of bangers. I was not expecting all this. Thankfully, the entire episode having been a dream is nowhere near as anticlimactic as it could have been, revealing that Leela was the one to get infected by the bee sting all along. It works in that it finally gives Leela the clarity in her feelings to Fry, and I have no doubt they'll go even further with this in the future. What's up next? To contrast that deeply emotional adventure, we have Bender gender bending in order to join the Women's Robot Olympics. Can already tell this is aged poorly.
If you ask me, women today are too stuck up to go out and jiggle their jello like everybody wants them to.
Like, really poorly. Aside from all that stuff, I just find it to be such an average and by-the-numbers take on the common boy pretends to be a girl concept. Like, of course a guy falls in love with them and they can't decide on how far to take things. There's just nothing much to say. You've seen this a million, possibly even a billion times. Two Bender renovation plots back to back, as he would rather run away than get one upon feeling threatened by the newer robots. This is another solo Bender romp as he eventually winds up on a desert inhabited by other forgotten bots. Boy, they sure do love the character bands an army to wage a war on the human stories. Bender's downgraded design is funny, but honestly, this is one of the few episodes where I actively find myself zoning out. Feels like a bunch of elements we've seen before rearranged and packaged as something new, even finishing with the none of it was real twist we saw not too long ago. Going around the middle. Honestly, at this point it's getting a tad infuriating at how many Fry and Leela episodes they have that end in her seemingly wanting to start something with him, only for the next to begin with her vehemently denying him. This being no different.
I know all her moves, therefore, I've got the upper hand.
The professor asks the crew to guard this box, but no opening it, which they naturally succumb to the pressure of. Everybody getting sucked into an alternate reality. Wait a minute, these designs are from Fortnite too! This is another sci-fi trope I love. Each person's counterpart having to keep an eye on the other. Fry and Leela learning that their alternate universe selves are married. They've had so many good ideas this season. I'm having trouble at this point deciding which I enjoy more. This is another I wish could be double the length, just to get all they can out of the concept, especially all the alternate universes at the end. Their fixation on coin flip jokes made me laugh way more than it should have. Everyone gets a $300 tax return. Lucky assholes. And so we get a series of interconnecting stories showcasing how each member of the crew chooses to spend it. Maybe it's just because the structure reminded me of 22 short films about Springfield, but Futurama has a seriously lacking secondary cast. If anything, I'm impressed they've been able to tell 70 stories with relatively the same characters. It's a fun setup, ripe for quick gags, many of which are solid, but I didn't find myself latching on to any of their storylines. You know, Fry drinks coffee, the professor de-ages. Again. Cool.
I also spent my tax refund on a crazy treatment.
Going a little below the middle. Like usual, not bad or anything, but certainly not the best. Was not expecting the rap opening. I thought I was playing a video in another tab. On a quest to get Fry's nose back, the Omicronian lure wants to cut off Fry's, as they call it, lower horn, so he can use it to rejuvenate his marriage. Their marriage crisis isn't something I'm all that invested in, especially not with how late it comes into play. I find the opening segment drags on a little long, time that would have been better used towards the ending. An ending, by the way, which is so contrived, making the whole thing feel pointless. Lots of good one-liners, particularly from Bender this time around, but the story isn't entertaining enough to make it stand out all that much. So, Fox had informed the team that the show would not be picked up for a 5th season before the writing of 4 had been completed, which gave them the opportunity to write something that could act as a finale. And so I was ecstatic to see that for said planned finale, they decided to go back to that ending of the Worm Parasite episode, where we see Fry is still secretly trying to learn the holophoner that impressed Leela so much.
Wow, your kid is great. How hard you say you had to hit him?
Well, fairly hard. Can't believe we haven't focused on the robot devil since the first season, but it's nice seeing him again, as Fry trades hands with him in order to be efficient at the instrument, which obviously has demonic ramifications. For the devil, that is, Fry's hands suck. I enjoy that this still works as a standalone episode, with him eventually being hired to write an opera which he uses as the perfect chance to express his feelings for her, before all these deals with the devil intertwine, causing Leela to go deaf so she can't truly appreciate it, which then leads to her also making a deal with him. It's a seriously strong finale, with great music, an engaging fast-paced story that packs so much in, and yet still has time for a satisfying end that doesn't give any kind of definitive answer as to where things will go, but gives you good enough closure on how they feel about each other. Though it's smart that it left things open for more. Honestly though, if Futurama ended here, I think it would have gone down as one of the best cartoons ever. Let's hope they don't ruin it. It's funny, other than like 3 or 4 of these, every episode of the season is either at the very top of my list or the very bottom. 4 out of my top 5 not coming from me, along with 3 of the bottom. Still though, this is definitely the best season yet. I always heard 3 was good, but 4 is fucking fantastic. It feels like the writers really hit their stride and figured out the exact right balance for comedy and drama, perfectly blending serialized elements with fun episodic sci-fi stories. Even if it would have been nice for the show to end here, I can completely see why there was such demand for a revival. A revival which took the form of 4 straight-to-DVD movies. So let's check out the first time Futurama was brought back from the dead, to see if there was any struggle in, yet again, finding their groove.
You know, it's funny.
What?
Your wiener!
With reruns performing well in Adult Swim, Comedy Central decided they would step in and produce a set of 4 direct-to-DVD Futurama movies, which would eventually be split up into parts to make up an eventual Season 5. Paired with their jump to HD, ooh, the future. I always hate it when I have to cover these TV movie things in a ranking, as I never know whether or not to treat it as one episode or try and rank each part individually. But I finally decided to just keep them as one single product, while giving it 4 collective spots on the list. For example, if this were to go at like number 50 or something, then I'd consider that spots 50 to 47. Make sense? I hope. See, you can tell it's a cartoon movie because of all the CG. Futurama returns! And it's like they never left as we quickly get reintroduced to everyone, along with finding out that the Planet Express has been cancelled 2 years ago by the folks at the Box Network. Subtle. This whole opening made me realize this is what my Simpsons movie was advertising when I was a kid. I had no clue what the fuck was going on.
Buy it, buy it, buy it, buy it.
The movie tries to carry a couple different stories, from Hermes losing his body and needing to get a new one, to Leela getting a new boyfriend who looks eerily like Fry. Can already make a couple guesses as to what the twist is. But the main plot features alien scammers taking over the Earth. Them taking major interest in Fry as a tattoo on his ass contains the secret to time travel. Him eventually choosing to leave the future and live back in his original time. As Bender is sent by the aliens under mind control, tasked with killing him, Terminator style. Things quickly get more and more convoluted as more characters are sent back from later points in the future for various reasons, teasing us with what's to come. It's rather entertaining. I was expecting them to try and make a movie more catered towards new viewers, but surprisingly, they managed to bring a lot from the previous seasons in without it ever feeling bloated or confusing to a new viewer. To someone who had never seen the series before this, I'm sure you could brush a lot of it off as just being weird future shit, like the appearance of God from Godfellas, the Globetrotters making a brief cameo, and Nibbler revealing his true identity to everyone again. We even get to see Fry's nephew from Luck of the Fryrish. There's so much fan service here. Oh god. If there's one complaint I have, which is understandable to be fair, it's that you can really see where each part starts and ends, which is a tad jarring when seeing it try to act as a uniform narrative. For example, Fry deciding to go back to the past and Bender having to kill him only occurs after a 20-minute detour of Bender first being ordered to go back and steal valuables for them. It all works, of course, but it does result in a very stop-and-go piece. At least it all contributes to the eventual ending, like them showing us how Bender's time escapades with stealing the valuables resulted in the events that transpired in the fast forward from the pilot, after Fry's frozen. Stuff like that is great and at least subtly builds to them going back to the past later on without it feeling as if it came out of nowhere. With every other time Fry has gone back to the past, it's never taken the route of actually showing us what he would do with himself, like the anthology segment that results in the time thingy or the previous Nibbler one. Here I'm happy we get a full-blown movie to really devote as much time as they could to one of my most sought-after explorations. Getting to see just what he would do with more time in the present. Past, before getting the most obvious reveal of all. That Leela's boyfriend is the Fry who sent himself back to the past, finally reaching the level of maturity that would win her over. When he figured out he was destined to be with Leela, he then went back and froze himself once again, coming to the future as his more elderly self. For as many nitpicks as I could give it, and for as little new it does, for the most part feeling like a grander retread of a bunch of previous ideas, Bender's Big Score really is a great time, even if the title is a tad misleading. If each of these movies can match a similar level of quality to this, while managing to do enough to stand on their own, then I think this could be a string of fantastic specials. I mean, it's got everything, even Family Guy.
Previously on Futurama.
When the fuck did that happen? It's a very charming idea to begin the special taking place within their own little rubber hose cartoon during the opening. I enjoyed that a lot. Look, this is what I'm talking about. We end the previous special possibly with the most clear and cut case of Leela understanding her and Fry are meant to be. Gets a new girlfriend off screen, sure, why not? There's no time for relationship drama, as the world is ending. A massive tear having tore its way through the planet, with the crew going on an expedition to see what's on the other side. Okay, well, maybe a little time for relationship drama. In reality, nobody gives a shit about their impending doom, as Fry quickly breaks up with her after it's revealed that he would be part of a polyamorous relationship. This definitely feels like one of those stories you could tell was only there for the sake of making this part work as a standalone 22 minutes. You don't care about her enough to feel as if she weren't coming back for the rest.
If I knew I was going to meet you, I would have done something with my hair.
You should have.
Unfortunately, I find this movie to be much weaker than the last. The threat here being so undefined makes it somehow less engaging than the already pretty one-note aliens from the last, along with each character's conflict feeling so disconnected. As Fry decides to go to the other side of the universe where he falls in love with this hideous tentacle monster that plans on taking over the Earth. Bender joins a secret robot society, and Amy mourns the supposed death of Kif after their attack on the Tear goes wrong. It's filled with plot contrivances like Farnsworth's simple escape from prison. I don't find his team up with longtime rival Wormstrom to be all that engaging. And worst of all, they bring back Uncle Zoid. Got some good gags, but within an hour and a half it was bound to get at least a couple laughs out of me. But I feel as if the show has done these Earth takeover plots way too many times. Even if this is by far the most extreme case of it, Fry becoming Pope of the world and mind-controlling everyone, eventually trying to let the tentacle monster down gently before getting consumed within their heavenly interior. The apocalyptic Earth is well designed, but it never feels as if they know which character storyline to give the main focus to. And the robot takeover final act just comes out of nowhere, as well as being a concept they've already done before. It's all over the place and not in a good way. Good ideas, but pretty mediocre execution.
What's her problem? Somebody die or something?
Kif's dead, Bender.
Nailed it!
No, it's a true animated movie. Oh yeah, Kif is brought back, by the way. The poster for this one looks cool. Intro's neat too. This is probably the least theatrical setup we've seen so far, but at the same time, it's a super fun idea, even if it takes, like, an hour to get into it.
We're trying to traverse the quagmire.
First part sees Leela trying to control her anger while Bender gets addicted to Dungeons and Dragons. So much so that he fails to recognize reality from fantasy, and is sent to an insane asylum. The most consistent plot point between all four parts is the dark matter shortage going on, an issue that I don't find that much investment in, as you honestly forget what the entire conflict was even derived from with how distracted it gets by the end. It sucks because there's a bunch of elements I think work incredibly well on their own, bringing back Mom as a villain who fabricated the dark matter shortage, as the professor attempts to get revenge on her for dumping him by finding the dark matter crystal he created back when they were going out, even though I thought their first episode together established him being the one to leave her. What? It's neat learning more about Nibbler's backstory during that third portion, but the whole time I just couldn't help but wonder, why is this called Bender's Game? If we don't even see said game until the 50-minute mark, where everyone is transported into a medieval fantasy setting, which is fairly unique for the series to be fair. I wish I had more to say, but really I found myself bored throughout Bender's Game more than anything. I was gonna say I liked him more than the last, just by proxy of being faster paced. You know, there was always something going on at the very least, but that would be to only acknowledge the mildly entertaining final part, and ignoring the boring near hour it took to get there. At the end of the day, I can't see myself ever returning to this special, hoping they go out in a bang at least. Okay, this episode opens on a Seth MacFarlane song, it's gotta be good. So for the second time, this was written to act as a finale to Futurama. No, if it had ended here, would I have been satisfied? Not really.
I've got a system!
I'm bankrupt.
This is yet another that takes forever to get to the point. The only recurring thing from the first half being Fry gaining telepathy after a freak accident, which he must use to help protect a dwarf star Leela cares about from the capitalist clutches of Amy's father. Even if it takes a bit to start up, I appreciate that part 1 still focuses on all the elements that would make up the eventual story, mainly taking its time in establishing how awful Mr. Wong is. I really like the character drama this causes, as he's unable to tell Leela that he's trying to dismantle things from the inside, her not understanding why he's working with Amy's dad. The introduction of the Dark Ones, the true threat of the special, being these evil, predatory creatures comes a little out of nowhere, along with the payoff to it all being a tad underbaked, despite being set up from the near beginning and tying back to the main story well. You know, it trying to destroy the dwarf star, which in fact is an egg containing DNA that can bring back every extinct creature in the universe. This massive stake scenario mainly works by tying back to Fry and Leela at the end of it all. I'm realizing now that's what I felt was missing from the last two, any kind of core. I wish said core came up more than a couple times throughout the entire movie, as Leela agrees to trust Fry, purely based on the fact that he's Fry, and she should trust him on that alone. It's very sweet. The two finally sharing a kiss as they enter a wormhole. Still doesn't hold a candle to Bender's big score, not even with an epic Snoop Dogg cameo, but number 2 ain't bad. What a mixed bag. This set of 4 movies really peaked with the first. It feels like they had the idea for Bender's big score, but had to come up with the rest as they went along. I'm also just personally not a fan of the approach of making 4 standalone episodes that vaguely connect. They either feel it being standalone episodes, or an hour-and-a-half long movie. There's no winning. Which is kinda hard when these were sold and advertised as movies. Even still, the impressive sales of the DVDs convinced Comedy Central to produce another season of the show, which then led to another season of the show. Which is good, as that would have served as an extremely underwhelming finale, especially compared to the end of Season 4. I've heard mixed things going forward, but all I can say is I hope Season 6 does more to justify its own existence compared to 3 out of the 4 of these things. Let's see. It's our longest season yet, picking up right after Into the Wild Green Yonder ended, where we find out what happened to the crew after entering the wormhole.
Yeah, we're back.
I love how unsettled they are at reintroducing all the characters. Well, except for Leela, who's dead for good. Fry creating a clone of her as a replacement. But oh no! The real Leela has just woken up, and now the two have to fight for his affection. Huh, you know, it's weird seeing a story in which Leela has to fight for Fry for a change. The genuine moral dilemma here is interesting. I wish they put more focus on it. You know, despite being a robot, it's not like clone Leela is any less Leela after being given all her memories. You can definitely notice a slight change with the cast, some of them sound a tad older, but for the most part everything's the same, especially with the storylines that are hilariously convoluted, as we eventually get the reveal that this Fry was also a robot, the real Fry then also getting revived. But if I'm being real, they spend so long explaining what happened to the characters after the events of the last movie that it makes it hard for them to fully explore these ideas. Overall though, solid opener that does what it needs to. It's funny, and at the end of the day, I suppose that's the main thing that matters. Fry and Leela are, I think, officially in a relationship though, so I'm looking forward to seeing what comes of it. Inagata da Leela, what the fuck? So Leela and Zap get together. Wait, really? This will they, won't they shit will never end. The two are put in this Adam and Eve-esque scenario after a death sphere seemingly destroys the Earth, resulting in Leela beginning to grow feelings for him. Obviously, it all winds up being a trick on his part, so she would want to be with him, which I think would have been an actual, well, reveal if there weren't a B story with the Planet Express crew running concurrently. Huh, I wonder if they really died. It's not bad, and definitely doesn't result in me writing off this new Comedy Central season or anything. The first 4 seasons had plenty of them. Not the biggest deal. My main issue is just the fact that it moves at such a fast pace that there's no time to build any sort of tension or stakes. Ending is extremely anticlimactic on top of it all. So Mom gets everyone to buy her brand new futuristic device. The iPhone. Ugh.
It's $500, you have no choice of carrier, the battery can't hold a charge, and the reception isn't very—
Shut up and take my money!
Wait, that came from this episode? I can't think of a more dated idea to have with a show that takes place in the future. Everyone becoming addicted to their devices. But uh-oh, Fry uploads an embarrassing video of Leela to the interwebs, her and I becoming a laughingstock as he tries to make it up to her. With lame-ass gags about iPods, Twitter, and epic internet videos, I cannot think of a more tone-deaf concept for Futurama to tackle. Let's just be glad there's no cats playing pianos or screaming goats. Just vomiting and diarrheaing goats. Because of all this, Mom's evil scheme completely falls to the wayside, her wanting to create an army of mindless zombies through social media followers. The commentary is about as deep as those awful comics about people being slave to their devices on the internet. Comics which they post to the internet from their devices. One of the worst of the entire show. Doesn't even have a proper ending for the mom shit. She just wins, that's it. Now this is the kind of episode that doesn't give me much hope going forward.
Don't tell me to shut up. You know what happened to the last guy who told me to shut up?
What?
You know, I thought Kif and Amy were just together for good, so I was surprised they'd go for a story of them breaking up. Especially not in favor of her wanting to be with Bender of all characters. That sure didn't feel forced at all. I can understand the want to see what mileage you can get out of different pairings, but this one was just weird. Like, I can barely even remember a time in which Amy and Bender had ever interacted before. And so this is a weird first thing to do with them together. Especially with a character like Bender who has never really shown much interest in commitment throughout the show. And especially not for a character like Amy, whom he has little to no chemistry with. If it was for mindless sex, I'd at least understand the motivation on his part, but him proposing to her? I don't know. Seems like just a forced excuse to do an allegory on gay marriage. The main thing that brings it up are the jokes. There's a lot of funny stuff in here. But the biggest issue I'm noticing so far with this Comedy Central season is how quick the stories revolve. Like, the Robo marriage stuff doesn't come into play until the last 5 or 6 minutes. You know, if you want to revolve an episode around it, then revolve the episode around it. Because by the time they start to do anything interesting with it, it's already over.
You can have a legal monogamous marriage like everyone else.
Woohoo! Yeah! Monogamous?
The crew find out that seeing James from Jesus was actually a robot, going to Rome and uncovering him.
We must fly to Rome and exhume the body of St. James.
Didn't we used to be a delivery company?
This is a super uninteresting episode. I really just don't give a shit. There's no real motivation on any character's part to uncover the secrets of whatever it is they're trying to uncover the secrets of. I honestly forgot after a certain point. The Da Vinci Code, I think? Maybe? Who cares? I feel like some people could either consider this to be the smartest or dumbest episode of the entire series, and unfortunately, I land somewhere around the dumb to stupid area. New bottom of the list. If there were ever a low point for Futurama, I think we're there. Oh wow, scratch that. This one's actually good.
How do you living beings cope with mortality?
Violent outbursts.
General sluttiness.
Thanks to denial, I'm immortal.
Bender realizes that he was never given a backup unit, meaning if he dies, his memories are gone for good, leading to him having this existential crisis trying to hunt down his missing inspector as Mom hunts him down due to the defect. A Bender and Hermes pairing was unexpected but appreciated. They contrast well off each other. Again, I'm so shocked that we're nearly 100 episodes in, yet so many members of the crew have barely mixed and matched. The twist at the end revealing it was Hermes who inspected Bender was also unexpected, but oddly sweet. I think I enjoyed the premiere more, but this is the first since then that I'd actually consider good. It's kinda sad when I say it out loud. The late Philip J. Fry is a brilliant return to form, once again going back to the time travel shenanigans, as the professor makes him test out his time machine that only goes forward, accidentally going to the year 10,000 and deciding the only way back is to continue going forward to see when the backwards time machine has been invented, eventually going 1 billion years into the future. This is thankfully another insanely creative story. All the cool future backgrounds are neat, and it's interesting getting to see a future in which Lilo is forced to take over the Planet Express crew without the professor. At its core though, it's all about Fry desperately trying to get back and make it in time for his date with Leela, before finding out that his message somehow manages to make its way to her. Creating this genuinely depressing moment where they all just accept their death, deciding to go to the end of the universe in one of the most strangely beautiful scenes of the entire series. Them going so far in the future that the universe winds up resetting and bringing them back. But it's really fantastic. I can't believe an episode like this came after such a string of disappointments. But by God, it's one of their best. Damn, they actually remembered Amy's supposed to be Planet Express's intern, wow.
Well, I may not have a man.
So are they a couple or not? Amy feels her doctorate presentation mainly due to her allergy to the professor's cat. What she doesn't realize is that the cat is in fact evil, with a maniacal plan to mind control everyone and do something. Her having to team up with Nibbler of all characters was interesting. I feel to mention that a previous one established that everyone now remembers his backstory and that he can speak in junk. But I don't know. Cats suck. That's it. Feels as if they thought the idea of cats actually being aliens was funny enough to carry the whole thing, but I don't know. Cats suck. Here we got the evolution episode with the professor trying to prove it.
And here's something. Uh-oh, it's another one of Fry's dogs.
They keep making me remember. I find the shift into him getting so mad at evolution seemingly being disproved that he decides to move off planet to be an odd choice, along with said planet getting taken over by robots. but it winds up tying itself back to his ongoing conflict well, them experiencing a mechanical evolution. It was good. Even if Zoidberg and Kubert's B-story felt a tad unwarranted, he doesn't appear in more than half of these episodes. Did we really need to know what he was up to without Farnsworth? For me, it's mostly brought up by the comedy. I especially liked the cut to him and the orangutan going on an endless argument about the missing links. Oh god, okay, honestly, the beginning of this season was kind of boring me a bit, so I decided I'd make things interesting by taking a drink anytime they made me laugh, but the past few episodes have actually been pretty good, so now I feel kind of fucked. I had an episode which is apparently some stroke of mathematical genius, the writer explaining the twist through his own theorem, so now I gotta try and comprehend this while drunk. Perfect. I decided at the end I would just look at the Wikipedia article to understand it better, and what the fuck is this? So Farnsworth invents this machine that switches the bodies of two users, him and Amy doing so only to discover that after switching, there's seemingly no going back, with him attempting to deduce a theorem that just does that pretty much. However, the more people get involved, the more complicated things become. This is an entertaining episode, all things considered, even if I am too stupid to understand it, or at least too inebriated. Intoxicated? Those mean the same thing? Fuck it. Let's make this easy. The proof reduces to treating individual cycles separately, since all permutations can also be represented as products of disjoint cycles. So first, let pi be some k cycle on n equals 1 n. I'm just thankful it works as a fun episode on its own, for dumb people like me. Oh god, I took advanced maths, what's become of me? I've done this Twilight Zone opening parody a million times. Here we have a story that focuses on Lur for some reason, as this time around his wife kicks him out, him moving into the Planet Express building to get his groove back. Can't believe it's taken them this long to do an episode. Like, The Simpsons would have covered it with the entire secondary cast by now.
Yeah, when are you gonna make a second Simpsons movie? No!
That's probably the best way I could describe it. This is the most Simpsons Futurama episode ever, and honestly, I don't mind. This is a pretty funny one. The lower stakes scenario ends up working in its favor. The little comic segments were fun too.
Why should I care about the hero when all he does is cry?
Yippee! It's episode 100! I really wrote yippee in the script. Damn, I really was drunk. Fittingly, it's the crew's 100th delivery, with Fry accidentally revealing Leela's secret of being a mutant to the whole world, her getting banished to the sewer where he tries to make it up to her by turning himself into one too. Ew. Overall, it's a decent milestone special, but I'm mainly enticed at the prospect of them changing the everlasting law of the series, that the mutants aren't allowed on the surface. Now it's free game. Wonder how often that'll come into play with future stories, or even just in the background characters we see going forward. Who knows? People who've seen the rest of the show, probably. Huh, guess Anthology of Interest is over and done with, as this one takes on a new setup, which sucks as now I can't anticipate them. Thanks, writers, you assholes. Here we have a Christmas special that consists of the characters experiencing 3 different holiday-themed stories, in particular Xmas, Kwanzaa, and Robonica. Sadly, I think each one is fairly shit. If I'm being real, I barely even realized when the segments were starting. It's not like they're telling stories, it's more like we're seeing a series of 3 tiny episodes play out, none of which get enough time to really have anything done with. This is one of my least favorites of the entire show. There's just nothing going on, I barely even have anything to say, unfortunately. I feel like I've heard this before, but it kept coming to mind while watching through this show. Futurama is like what pseudo-intellectuals thought Rick and Morty was. Just gonna leave it at that. This is probably the strangest episode to make that point on, as there's literally nothing to say about it. With Bender going into witness protection after testifying against the Robot Mafia. One of the few sets of recurring characters on the show, weirdly enough.
Name's Billy West!
What a stupid, phony, made-up name.
Pretty tired concept, but I think the comedy more than makes up for it, especially the ending. I just don't think Clamps is a good enough character to take the starring role, as he joins the Planet Express crew to find out where Bender was taken. It's one of those cases where the character initially created to be super one-note was considered popular enough to get a larger role, but he was only popular based on saying one phrase, and so all they can think to do with him is have him say the phrase over and over, expecting it to hit each and every time. Instead, the opposite happens, where now I'm a little sick of him. I get it. He clamps things. Cool. Honestly, given how intriguing the concept of learning about the professor's first crew was, I was expecting the thing to focus on some big twist of them actually being alive and now they gotta compete or something to see who stays on. Was not anticipating it to turn into Moby Dick.
It's a space mammal.
Wow, interesting. I'm both impressed and being eaten.
After the crew get lost in the space version of the Bermuda Triangle, Leela becomes obsessed with trying to catch this killer whale who screws up her delivery. I just don't think she's been given enough reason to care this much. Like, it's not as if these guys have some clean-ass track record or anything. Maybe if there were more incentive for her to not fuck this one up, I would have been more invested. All she ends up having to do is come to terms with her obsession to solve things. However, like last time, the jokes are good enough to put it high amongst the rest of Season 6 so far. And that little warp moment was cool. Makes me wish the whole thing had more to do with that stuff. Finally fed up with being a delivery boy, Fry decides he wants to join the police force for some respect. Interesting getting to see some police aside from the same two they've been using non-stop since episode 1. Despite the first half consisting of not much other than tired parodies of Police Academy, Tron, Avatar, I find Law & Oracle to be one of the strongest so far. Fry finding out that he actually isn't half bad at the job before having to face the moral dilemma of what he should do about Bender's upcoming heist, where he has the potential of killing his best friend. Pleasantly surprised by this one, although I'm hoping it doesn't lead to many more about the main character getting random job after random job. Futurama has been one of the rare adult sitcoms to impressively avoid that tired trope. So to get out of work, Bender decides to use the professor's cloning machine to, well, clone himself. Come on, keep up. I like that they're tiny clones, alleviating any fear of a who do I shoot ending, especially after the clones choose to clone themselves as they continue getting tinier and tinier. Patton Oswalt also has an entertaining cameo too. I enjoy that for the most part it's just a series of quick gags showcasing what tiny Bender clones would get up to, along with them eventually attempting to kill every one of them, and it was an extremely entertaining escalation to have them get so tiny they turn all the water molecules in the world to alcohol, as the Patton Oswalt monster returns only to be insulted by the wasted crew, and trying to destroy the city as a result. It all comes together super well. I'm surprised how much I like this one in the end. One of the best.
They'll reproduce without limit, consuming all the matter in the world. Like the Kardashians.
Wait, why would Fry know about... Oh, whatever. We finally get the answer to the question that's been on everyone's mind. How did the Professor and Zoidberg meet?
I'm afraid Fry lost a lot of juice. He's developed Simpson's jaundice.
Ay, caramba!
I just don't understand the need for this and the present-day story to run parallel, where the crew are sick of him and want him fired. I just don't think it needed it, especially given the flashbacks were already happening before asking the professor why he sticks around. And I think the reveal of their deal that Zoidberg would kill him as soon as he started showing signs of dying from this disease, to not do much other than set up the second portion where he's tasked with assassinating him by surprise. You know, it could have started with the professor requesting this, and it only would have given them more time for the team-up between Zoidberg and Mom, along with the reveal of him having Yetiism, which they have next to no time to actually do anything with. I don't know, it ain't a bad episode. It was actually nominated for an Emmy. And I can see the vision here, but personally I find its structure to be all over the place. Ending was nice though. Here's a neat idea I'm shocked I haven't delved into before, as Bender is disgusted to see that Fry thinks a human's life is more worth saving than a robot's, leading to him killing himself. He immediately wants to get revived after realizing that when you're dead, and so the robot devil is willing to bring him back as long as he manages to scare Fry to death. Always good seeing Dan Castellaneta return as the devil, even getting a quick callback to the song from his premiere episode, and the restriction of Bender only being able to haunt him by possessing mechanical objects was very amusing. There's a few gags that had me groaning, like a fucking Obamacare reference, and the ending felt quite anticlimactic and rushed. But overall, this is another okay one. Glad to see Season 6 has had a slight uptick in quality. Here's the mandatory boys versus girls episode, as the Planet Express ship crash lands on a presumably uninhabited planet, where this rock creature wants to experiment on them by seeing which gender is better through a trek to an icy mountain. I was expecting it to fall into the structure every single one of these ever follows, where the men are incompetent who love farts and, well, demeaning women, whereas the women are incredibly competent and know how to get shit done. But instead, it chooses to highlight both being incompetent. Boy, women sure do love shopping and diet sodas. Got a tad more interesting in the final act as everyone gets their genitals removed and realize how much more efficient they can be without them, before they all get Rule 63'd. But I wish more of the episode was given the time to focus on it. Like if the first half was them getting their stuff removed and the second being them Rule 63'd. Not bad, but a real underutilization of such a neat idea to explore. This season especially, I'm noticing, really wastes a lot of time with their openers. God, why is Leela consistently the character to get some of the worst standalone stories despite being such a good character? This shit sucks. The idea alone is just stupid, as she gets the chance to create a kid show for Nickelodeon. Ugh. Ugh. Their commentary on kids' TV just isn't all that biting, funny, and worst of all, it doesn't feel like Futurama. And the twist that she was simply stealing her ideas from a planet of creatures doesn't do much to rejuvenate my interest. It's so generic and could have come from any show out there, it's lame. You know, anytime I search up an episode of this show on Google, one of the first results is always an image of this soying meal reacting to it. What does he see that I don't? Leela wants everyone to eat organic food now. Exciting! This ends up causing Fry to take care of a dangerous bone vampire, bringing it back to its home planet where it upsets the locals who want to kill it. There's some neat sci-fi depictions of food in here, but I find so many of these Comedy Central episodes take way too long to get to the stuff you actually would want to see, resulting in so many feeling like they're just going through the motions, instead of covering a concept they can get a solid 22 minutes out of. Like, the ending to this one is just stupid, pretty much saying the entire last half was needless. Ugh. It's here we learn that Fry has a night job we've never heard about, as a night security guard at the museum, where Farnsworth finds out his ancestry has been filled with pricks. I enjoy the concept introduced here where you travel back to the time period of the head jar juice you lick, him now attempting to travel back and undo his family's misdeeds. I wish we could have seen them travel to other points in time. Maybe it could have been about him trying to undo the mistakes of every Farnsworth, not just the one. Because aside from a short look at a couple time periods, they just stay in Ben Franklin times for a majority of it. But I'm a big fan of changing history stories, America now being ruled by Britain and... Okay, well, they kind of run out of time by the end to do anything really cool with it. Damn. But at this rate, in a season like this, all an episode needs to do is have an entertaining setup. So I enjoyed this one. You know, I'm pretty sure I've seen this one before, but I don't really remember anything about it. But I do find it shocking they're actually deciding to focus on Fry's dad of all characters, following a similar structure to Luck of the Fryrish in Jurassic Park. However, here the main connecting piece is merely that Fry is sick in each storyline, until the final act at least. I find it seriously unfocused for the first half, just throwing in various scenes of his dad being tough on him, while everything in the future feels completely pointless, and not complimenting the past stuff nearly enough to warrant its inclusion. I'm happy they're at least attempting something like this again, and the ending does leave things on a sweet note, as we see that his father did indeed care about him. But honestly, it's as if they came up with the ending they wanted first, and tried to figure out how to justify getting there. Still though, one of the better of the season. Alright, so despite not being the finale, Overclockwise was written to serve as a potential end to Futurama. Didn't happen. Now, if we were to end here, would I have been satisfied? I guess. Fry and Leela finally acknowledge their on-again, off-again relationship, as she tries to make her mind up on whether or not she wants to be with him. Can't believe we're still doing this. B-story manages to be fun enough as Qbert powers up Bender to the anger of Mom, suing Farnsworth over violating his warranty. But the stuff I want to see here is the shit with Fry and Leela, which sucks because it takes up such little time, so much that I'd probably call this the B-story, with Leela eventually leaving the Planet Express to do something with her life. They don't follow up on this until the last fucking minute of the episode.
We were supposed to... What? I don't know.
But we do know! We've learned like 5 times now! At this rate, it's just flat out repetitive. I can see this working a whole lot better if they were given the chance to have this be like a 45-minute special or something, because as is, it's just trying to cover too much grind with not enough time to do it adequately, especially with Bender eventually becoming this godlike being. It's shit because I see the vision, and the ending, you know, as an isolated scene, works well. Although if you really take the time to think about it, it's a little fucked up that after everything they've shared together and the many signs that they should be with each other, the only thing that'll convince Leela to give it a go is a detailed list of their exact future with one another. Kinda shallow, don't you think? But it's like seeing pieces of a bigger event that's been chopped up into little tiny bits. Pretty happy they got the chance to do more after this. Although with the next finale, let's just hope 4th time's the charm, because nothing they've tried so far has topped season 4's. Season 6 closes out with another anthology. They don't really do these as often as I'd expect, which makes me less upset when they come around. Gimmick is all 3 segments are done in different styles. First is a charming rubber hose homage, which is neat, even if I wish they had pushed it even further beyond all the stereotypical stuff you'd expect. I appreciated the Popeye reference though. Second is done like a so retro pixelated video game, like Code Monkeys or something. It's less good, some clever visuals like the start of the universe being a mere pixel, but that was about it. The puns kinda got on my nerves. Finally, the final sees the show in the style of a 70s anime. Boy, anime sure is complicated and weird, am I right, guys? Just about sums up the segment. By far the funniest of the three, though. Had a shocking amount of fun with Reincarnation. Solid way to end out the season. The jump from season 4 to here was astonishing. We've transitioned from the best season to the worst by far. You really get the feeling that the couple-year break they had just kind of lost them their groove. Although my least favorite thing about it is it just doesn't feel like it's taking any risks aside from a handful of episodes here and there. Most of them are just so by the numbers and average, and you really start to notice the formula they're trying to follow. Episodes feeling like they're 3 different ideas shoved into one. Like I said though, there are a few in here that are up there with the greats. It's just hard not to wish there were more like that scattered throughout. Who knows though, maybe it was just some regrowing pains. The season did good enough for Comedy Central to want to pick up a 7th though. And I definitely wouldn't say the show has gotten bad so far, just kind of in a rut. Maybe we'll see them get more accustomed to these characters again. God, I hope so. Season 7 begins by re-establishing all the cast members in an amusing way. But don't worry, we quickly get back to basics, as Bender fucks a soda machine and has a kid. Classic Futurama.
What the? Aw, can't I have one moment to myself?
Initially, I was confused at how much they were bothering to establish how the process of having a robot kid goes down, before remembering this was never considered a thing that could happen before, as far as I remember at least. But it results in an entertaining, if not all that amazing episode. Was genuinely expecting to keep his kid around as a permanent addition to the cast. Seems like something a ton of adult cartoons like doing well into their runs. Just making a tinier, more marketable version of the merchandisable character, like Roger from American Dad or the hormone monster from Big Mouth. But the difference here is the relationship between Bender and his kid is actually charming. One of the most average stories they've done for a season premiere, but it's good. Ending actually made me care about their bond together, so that's a win. Hope this is a sign of things to come. Oh god, here's their 2012 parody, as they find out that the world will end in 3012. Topical. A series of cataclysmic events have started erupting on Earth. Right on cue! And so now they gotta use a newly discovered rocket ship to escape the planet. It's a dark but humorous escalation to have a robot randomly choose who doesn't get a ticket to Mars, Fry giving up his spot for Leela before they find out that Mars was actually the planet facing impending doom. The character drama is great, but the main thing I find that brings it down overall is the comedy. I've begun noticing them rely on pop culture humor way more often, and not in a clever way like done before. Like, why would Leela make a joke about Tron Legacy sucking? Well, probably because it wasn't that old around the time this was written, and the writer wanted to make a joke at its expense without consideration for how little sense it would make in universe. Just a bit lazy, something I'm not used to saying about Futurama. But still, a good episode overall with a ton of fantastic looking shots.
Free beer!
Okay, that was pretty good. It only took 100 episodes, but it's finally time for a new election, as Richard Nixon tries to assure his re-election, as Leela steps in to try and stop him by helping out this new seemingly nice politician, as Bender teams up with Nixon to get dirt on the guy. It's unfortunately another that comes off like it could have come from any other show from the time, and it only stands out due to its futuristic codependency, doing a stupid satire of folks asking about Obama's birth certificate. Thankfully though, I've consistently found season 7 to be much funnier than the last. So far at least, we are only 3 episodes in. Still, it's at the bottom of the list, but not nearly as bad as the worst of season 6. Twist was fun at least. God, do you think they're gonna do a commentary on Trump? It's time for the evergreen plotline of our main character joining the paparazzi, with Bender trying to get a photo of this elusive celebrity whose face has never been seen. Their commentary is about as basic as you'd imagine, and the height of its comedy is just showing a current-day famous person, but they're a robot with a silly robot name. Becomes a tad more interesting after he finds out that the mere sight of the celebrity will suck out your life force, but I don't really care or find it all that engaging. It's an episode that never feels like it's going anywhere exciting with the super anticlimactic ending. It's fine. Just fine. Again, here's another plot that feels like it's coming out of a show that's rapidly running out of ideas. Leela's mother divorces her father, and in place of him, she begins to date Zap Brannigan. Wow, what a conundrum for Leela. Feels like a lame setup done for the sake of the drama this would create for Leela, not because it would actually make sense for the characters. Although I suppose Leela's mom doesn't really have much of a character, to be fair. Kinda boring, as a matter of fact. It's nifty getting to see more about how your parents met, and I appreciate them trying to do something larger with them. However, it doesn't really do anything for me when it's in service of such a contrived idea. The only thing I really liked was the concept that this was a result of them finally being allowed to go up to the surface, and not being forced to settle with whatever was in the sewers. But why they had to take this in the Zep direction, I have no clue. Dude, Season 7 has just nosedived. As Butterjunk Effect sees Amy and Leela's bitchiness towards each other be pushed to 11, leading to both of them trying to prove their friendship by joining the Butterfly Derby where they have to avoid touching the floor. I'm surprised it's taken them this long to try and do something more with Amy and Leela. Just too bad it sucks. Turns into such a lame steroid story, where they take performance-enhancing drugs which makes them ultra-aggressive and violent. It's moving at such a fast rate that I can't tell what they're really trying to do or say. And there's not nearly enough good jokes in here to make up for it. Eventually just turning into a journey to try and get more of the substance, them becoming attracted to Fry after he gets soaked in it, before randomly realizing drugs are bad, I guess. It just doesn't know what it wants to do with itself or focus on, completely going off the rails by the end. I flat out hate this one, it's awful. More Hermes as he fires himself after realizing how little he does around the place. Fair, honestly, it's true.
Machine who's replacing you.
I'm Mark 7G, the machine who's replacing you.
This leads to him deciding to replace his body parts with robot limbs to increase productivity, him not knowing when to stop to the point where he's more machine than man. It's better than the last few, but the issue is mainly how long they spend having this escalation, because you can already tell what they're going for the second they introduce being able to replace your body parts, so you're just waiting for the moment where he realizes he's going too far. Still, though, there's other stuff I like, such as how hilariously dark Zoidberg using his leftover skin as a meat puppet is, and the Monster Mash parody at the end was fun. Aspects like that end up putting it pretty high compared to the rest. Fry goes to some strange planet full of Neanderthals after his escapades at Oktoberfest, although the rest of the crew believe he died in some freak accident. Their future depiction of Oktoberfest being revealed to be some ultra-sophisticated event was funny, but that's where things peak, unfortunately. Along with Leela breaking up with Fry, to which he responds by claiming he didn't even know they were going out, for real. It's bizarre she would voluntarily choose to remove all her memories of him to not have to deal with that pain and guilt, but it results in a funny dynamic where the rest have to do their best to not remind her of his existence. For an amnesia story, I was pleasantly surprised. For the most part, I enjoyed this one. The quick ending montage of her memories restoring was sweet. Going near the top.
Over there. Where? I mean over here. Sorry, I forgot where I was.
I don't know why that caught me so off guard. Bender goes to college for about 2 seconds as he gets in with a bad crowd, going on a downward spiral and for some reason eventually becomes distraught to learn that he's got no free will. I guess I just wish there was more of a reason for him to be so saddened by this. It got him out of prison. I feel like in any other episode he would have embraced this to get out of whatever the hell he wanted. It's neat getting to see a return of the robot planet from season 1, but I don't know, they didn't really do anything with this existential crisis. And the way they bring the professor in by the end comes out of nowhere. He didn't really have anything to do with things until then. Honestly, I think I would have preferred the generic going to college story over this. It's so painfully okay. Oh cool, I like this idea a lot, as Fry reintroduces Farnsworth to his parents, who've just been alive this whole time. Was happy to see them bring back the giant retirement home. I thought they would have forgotten that aspect of this world. If anything, I wish we could have spent longer in the virtual world, as all the old folks are hooked up to batteries, Matrix style. A lot of neat visual gags in there. I find myself liking them a lot. They're just nice. Before we learn their dark secret that they cared about their son's mental well-being, which he resents them for. Damn.
We're just not emotionally mature enough for college yet.
Not the most groundbreaking thing ever, but I had a bunch of fun with it. What a charming episode, favorite of the season. Despite the title, this episode has nothing meta about it, instead revolving around Bender as he starts to fight for the rights of robot animals, after learning robot foxes are endangered due to the members of his hunting club hunting them. Sadly, I really hated it, and not even because it's offensively horrible or anything, there's just nothing worth noting. It's so dull, even just visually. I couldn't think of anything to say about it even if I tried. So I won't. Sucks. The Robot Mafia are back. Like I said before, it's weird that they're some of the most consistently used characters in Futurama. With the Planet Express crew having to stage a heist in order to retrieve some property that was stolen from Amy's parents' casino, namely, the casino. I had a fair amount of fun with this one, especially for the first half with Zoidberg's gambling shenanigans, and it transitions well into the main story with him turning invisible, making him perfect to help with the heist. Jesus, what a mixed bag of a season so far. There's no consistency whatsoever. See, this is what I'm talking about. I fucking hate this one. Futurama sees 3 short stories where the main cast are seen as different animals. I think with these kind of anthologies that don't have much to do with the concept of the show, it highlights why these characters aren't like the Simpsons or the Griffins, and that they can be put in any random situation and have it work. The characters of Futurama are so unique and specific that just seeing them as a fish or seals doesn't work as well as just having them be their normal selves, because it requires taking away what stands out about them. Like, why do I care that Bender is a fish when all that does is take away from what makes him right for stories that can only be done with Bender? That he's a robot, no duh. Oh wow, the Omicronians are bears. That sure is those characters, but as bears. It's just so unfunny and predictable and lame to me. I also think about how someone would react to this if this were their first time watching Futurama. What would there be to latch on to? What would there be to enjoy? I would never want to watch the show again, as it doesn't cater itself towards the show's concept. You could do this with literally any other cartoon ever. New worst episode. God, this sucks. Really? Did we need another episode about Bender becoming a musician? Did the first leave that much untapped potential? He becomes a folk singer by copying his hero's guitar. But oh no, whatever he sings about comes to life. There's just nothing here I care about. I don't give a shit about Bender's forced motivation to become a success at something he's never shown interest in before. I get when you're this far into a series, stuff like that is bound to come up, purely for the sake of new ideas. But the way I'd make sure to not approach that would be to sing about what's going to happen in each upcoming scene, and then we watch it happen in each upcoming scene. Riveting! The professor gets upset at the crew's lack of respect for his ship, and so he leaves to join a street racing gang. The Liam Fast and Furious parody is tired and overdone, but thankfully things get a bit better towards the end, when his ship collides with Leela's, sending everyone to a 2-dimensional dimension. Wish they had more time to explore it, along with wishing it had been set up better, as it comes in a bit out of nowhere, but it was still a creative set piece for as little as we see of it. It's alright overall. Fry gets abandoned on the Omicronians' planet where he befriends Lur's kid, we learn has existed this whole time apparently. It's just a reverse of E.T., but their dynamic is cute, I guess. And I was pleasantly entertained by all Bender's attempts to try and hide the fact that he's the reason Fry didn't go home with them. Don't have too much to say, E.T. parodies are a dime a dozen, but they do a solid job with it. Fry and Leela decide to take a vacation for some alone time together, where they run into her old boyfriend. Oh no! He barely appears in the— Wasn't expecting them to do so few episodes about their relationship, even if Leela is now once again clarifying that they're not really in one. Perfect. Every time I think we're done with this, they retreat right back to the will they won't they shit. Seeing Gunther and the others' B-story was a neat surprise, along with this monkey planet being cool to explore. Pretty casual all around. But the Fry and Leela stuff is without a doubt the most interesting, eventually getting the reveal that their vacation is taking place within the monkey zoo. This was a great one, even if the ending was a bit rushed.
You know who I hate most? That monkey we haven't seen in years. Gunther.
The fuck what'd he do? Aside from a few standout moments from Zap, I find this episode to not really offer much new, with the crew becoming firefighters, before Bender eventually finds a sentient solar flare that comes back with him that wants to destroy the world. I just wish the reveal of this thing didn't take so long, wasting time on this lame conflict where the crew think Bender is starting these fires on purpose. But it's written so on the nose that you're just waiting for the twist, and therefore, for the episode to actually start. Doesn't leave a whole lot of time to do much with it. And I find Fry blowing up at him near the end to feel pretty contrived, but all around, decent one. I will say though, that first half of them on their mission looks really good. Probably one of the nicest looking scenes of the whole series. Maybe it's the colors, the shading, I don't know, it impressed me. Really? Another anthology so soon? Especially one as shit as this. I just don't know what the idea is. Like, what about this screams Futurama? Here's 3 segments parodying different Saturday morning kids cartoons. For no real reason. The Scooby-Doo one contains every obvious joke you could ever make about Scooby-Doo. Boy, that show sure did have a lot of forced celebrity cameos. They sure did have poor animation. Did you know that Shaggy could possibly be interpreted as a stoner? Whoa. Them adapting the art style so well doesn't make up for these unfunny gags. Okay, so imagine that, but also for Smurfs and G.I. Joe. Some stuff's funny, but this just isn't what I come to the show for. I don't know who does. What's funny is I remembered actually catching this episode once on TV after finally wanting to see what the hype for the show was all about. And seeing this one convinced me that I apparently wasn't missing much. It's been 1 full year since the death of Calculon. Honestly, I forgot he died in that paparazzi episode. His resurrection was entertaining, but I find that I don't really know where to take it from there aside from the most obvious direction, where he can't get his job back since the network wants to aim for the younger, more hip demographic. And so now he's got to search for a way to reinvigorate his career. He's a good character, and I enjoyed the quick nod to Bender, but to be honest, I don't really care if he gets his career back. And Bender and Fry's reasoning for wanting to help him, while a little humorous, doesn't make me intrigued enough to want to see him succeed, especially since they end things exactly where they started, yet the two of them act like they got what they wanted. It just doesn't care. Bender gets all his body parts stolen aside from his mouth and eyes, with the crew needing to search across the universe to retrieve them. Pretty sure American Dad did this exact same story but with Roger. After a quick montage, they mainly focus on them trying to find his shiny middle ass, leading to a neat atmospheric underwater adventure. Not one of the strongest, and I don't have a ton to say about it, but it's certainly the best we've seen in a bit. It was alright. Dude, you have no idea how fucking scared I was reading that title. I mean, this episode is a lame homage to Jack and the Beanstalk like I previously feared, but hey, at the very least, it's still in-universe. As Leela begins turning into a squid in which, well, they pretty much just do Jack and the Beanstalk, but it's mom instead of a giant. Wow. Although other than that, I give 0 shits about this, even if the ending was sweet.
What time is it? Time for you to shut up!
Game of Tones is one of the best Futurama episodes from season 7. Last time we had one like this, we focused on Fry's dad, and so this time we're focusing on his mum for a change. The gang trying to figure out the source of a tune by having Fry travel back to New Year's Eve 1999 to find out. The structure works so much better than just relying on flashbacks again, and results in a bunch of creative gags, like Fry attempting to go into locations he had never been in before and being presented by a white void, along with him wondering if his family really were that bad, or if he just convinced himself they were so that he wouldn't feel as bad about leaving them behind. That's a fantastic topic to explore, not one they do a whole lot with. I really loved this episode. Him getting carried away spending quality time with his dream family, and trying to communicate all he can with his mother before the crew take him back to the present to save the world. I've never seen a show go back to the same pilot so many times and still have it be engaging. For some reason, it never gets old. We could have seen more of Fry interacting with his family, but what we got here was great. Really nice ending too, where he finally gets to communicate with his mom about how much he cared for her, even if it's only in a dream. Before we find out that this isn't Fry's dream, it's his mother's. Him finally getting to express his love as we get concrete confirmation that she deeply missed him after his disappearance. That's so sad! It's that Peter Pan shit I talked about in the Disney ranking. I'm too emotional to go into it again.
Well, no, not in a dream. Lots of weird stuff could happen.
Philip, have you lost weight?
What was that? Back to normality as the crew start infighting over the lack of respect for each other's personal belongings, and so now they're forced to go on a corporate team-building retreat to strengthen their bonds. I love how quickly it takes such a drastic turn as they accidentally bring in this dangerous, bloodthirsty creature that, oh no, it's all a part of the team-building exercise, isn't it? I just ruined the twist for myself, damn. Still though, it's got a lot of dark, atmospheric shots that look cool, and it's pretty intense all things considered, and it's nice getting to see another adventure where everyone has something to do. Just wish I couldn't see the twist coming from a mile away. Oh, what? That double got me! Zoidberg's been having trouble with the ladies due to his bad smell, but thankfully a girl enters his life who has no sense of it. It's okay, but I don't find it meshes well with the Bender tap dance story. Usually these super disconnected plots are fine if they build towards each other by the ending, but not really here, and unfortunately I don't think either is strong enough to carry it. This is one of the most forgettable episodes of the entire series. Except for almost killing a kid, that was dark. Okay, so, here what we have was, for a whole decade, the true finale to Futurama. Now, if it had ended here, for real, would I have been satisfied? Oh, actually, yes! From the get-go, I love that we start in the moon, where Fry and Leela made their first delivery. Really helps with that whole full circle vibe. And I've come full circle by bringing back the puns! Because the moon is, circle and it can, be full.
Man, we sure used to try harder back then.
Me too. After a near-death experience, Fry plans on proposing to Leela, a little out of nowhere, but his plans are thrown out of whack after the professor invents a device that takes everything 10 seconds back in time. Him trying to use it to ensure that night goes perfectly before getting stuck in a suicide loop. Makes sense when you're watching. This is a wonderful concept to end on doing what Futurama does best, balancing the dark sci-fi and character drama. Everything progressively getting worse and worse compounding on each other, with Fry and Leela eventually freezing the entire universe. The two wind up spending eternity together, making their perfect life and growing old. It's a pretty casual finale all things considered, but for how long their will they won't they shit lasted, I think it's more than earned. Being accompanied by a beautiful piano piece. Eventually, the professor returns because time travel, and informs the two he can put everything back in place. Only catch is nobody will remember anything, and not the life they spent together. But without even considering it, the two agree to go around again, embracing this second chance to spend their lives with one another. I can't believe it! They pulled it off after all this time! The perfect finale. So Hulu said, Season 7 was a definite improvement from 6. Although I will say it started really strong, ended really strong, but kinda meandered around the middle. You know, it's got better episodes than Season 6, but also worse. Much, much worse. I think I'd rather this though. Any day I would take sitting through a handful of mediocre episodes, if it meant getting to witness some of the greats this season had to offer, compared to a season of episodes that, while aren't bad, leave my memory the second after I'm done watching. And the perfect thing about this finale, if anything, and I do wonder if it was intentional given how many times they've been cancelled and revived, is that it does give a conclusive ending while leaving things open for more. So with 10 years off the air, let's see just what's changed about Futurama.
Did someone switch the universe off and on?
It feels like we got rebooted.
Ugh. Despite it being a decade, Futurama returns picking things up right where Meanwhile left off, which I was surprised by. Although in-universe it's now the year 2023, Fry wanting to set himself a goal by becoming the first person to watch every TV show ever, which he can thanks to the help of Hulu. You know, there's an issue when a show about the future is off the air for a period of time, and upon returning wants to tackle advancements that have happened during that. And it's not, well, wouldn't this stuff already have existed? That's a nitpick, you know? Obviously the writers weren't time travelers. But the issue comes in with how much focus this stuff takes up. Really, if it were in the background or used for quick jokes here and there, it would be fine. But making entire plots around it is where it gets unbearable and in your face. Now we have jokes about streaming today and PC humor and NFTs. Ugh. I wouldn't even care if the episode felt like it was doing anything other than just acknowledging that they're back. Oh no, if Fry binges to the end of a show, he'll pretty much die, and so the gang have to go to Hulu headquarters to convince them to pick up a show from 10 years ago for an additional 20 episodes. They even bring back Calculon from the dead again because fuck trying to make any new characters. It's either retreading on jokes and characters from the classic episodes, or offering new material based on, boy, we sure were cancelled 3 times. It was kind of charming when you did these jokes after the first revival, but the third? It's like watching them run out of steam in real time. Either way, less than stellar opener, not new for the show. Who knows? Wouldn't be fair to write off the entire season just based off this. Like, it's not bad, just tired. Okay, shit, I'm done for this idea. So remember when Amy and Kif had those kids they never did anything with? Well, now they're gonna do something with them. Namely, something. They're due. I can't believe it's been 20 fucking years since that episode. Jesus Christ. And they basically just do a repeat of the storyline from that one, where Amy feels underprepared and not ready to take care of children. The only difference is now they're here. Only plot point I enjoyed was the kids having an instinctual bond towards Leela, since they were made from her DNA. But the main thing that brings it down for me is, it's just not that funny. Kif completely falls to the wayside despite this being his first standout episode in a long time. Nothing really comes from this rivalry with Leela. Everything just concludes for no real reason. And is it just me, or does it look a little more bland visually? Maybe I'm just going crazy, who knows? But either way, I somehow think I liked the previous more. At least I'll remember it, even if for the wrong reasons.
We're bankrupt. Oh, I borrowed money to invest in Bitcoin.
It's like they just heard the term Bitcoin mine, thought of the most obvious pun you could do with that, and then started writing the episode. The crew travel to the Old West so the professor can pay back his debt to the robot mafia, each of them having to pick up random odd jobs around the town. It's as aimless as it sounds. You know, I never cared much for Hermes' son, but I at least liked the subversion that he respected his dad a ton, wanting to find ways to gain his admiration. Now he's just a brat who talks back and only cares about playing his DS? It's 2023! I mean, 3023. Bender's song was fun, gotta give praise where it's due. Assumed we'd have some sort of sequel to the Season 2 episode about Fry getting those parasite worms, but I suppose they knew not to even try and compete, as it instead revolves around the characters shrinking down to kill the worms infecting Nibbler's litter box. It's like everything I was glad Parasites Lost wasn't. Sorry for being so negative, I'm aware this is quite the leap. And I want to clarify that it's not as if any of these have been horrible, just nowhere near as smart or inventive as the show once was, even during the Comedy Central era. This is the best so far, but not by much. It's just a fairly forgettable Dune parody. I've never seen Dune, so most of the references are just lost on me. Nah. Oh wow, here's one that actually feels like a natural progression of things, as Leela is moving in with Fry, which makes Bender incredibly jealous. Just wish it didn't so quickly divert into becoming about Bender getting a job at Mamazon, which Fry and Leela have to help him escape from. But not before continuing their move-in story in a topical B-plot about how awesome and convenient ordering online is. Boy, people sure do order stuff that they don't really need that much. The AI takeover shit is so overdone. And this is exactly the opposite of what I praised earlier, where the show has gotten so modern that their interpretation of new future stuff is just white and minimalist. It's so boring. Along with their current depiction of Mom where all she does is slap people, that's pretty much her whole character now, it's Liam. Damn, first Xmas special in what feels like forever, as Farnsworth goes back in time to make it so Santa never turns evil. The callbacks to previous episodes were fun, and I enjoy that they take it in the direction of Bender and Zoidberg realizing they have no one to spend Christmas with, now that everyone actually can spend it with friends and family. A pairing between these two has been extremely rare, so it's cool to see, going back in time and killing Santa, which eventually builds to the reveal that this is what resulted in him being evil in the first place. I enjoyed this one a lot, especially with how much everything compounds on itself by the third act. Feels like it could have come out of the classic... Okay, maybe not the classic seasons, but the Comedy Central ones at the very least. Best so far.
As the year we triumphed over COVID-19!
Oh, come on, no way, really? Is this a prank? A COVID episode? I guess COVID's just been going on in the background of the entire series or something, I don't know, they clearly didn't either. So with COVID finally done, everyone is distraught to learn that a new disease has started going around, caused by mutants in the sewer. It's not even that it's outrageously bad or anything, but like the worst of the series we've seen, there's just no joke here that hasn't already been done by every other show doing COVID stuff. Whoa, they go on Gloom. Whoa, masks. Whoa, social media misinformation. Future. Like the entire setup, the joke that COVID lasted well into the future, was literally the exact same setup as South Park's COVID special. But hey, at the very least that came out at a time that made sense, not late 2023. What? Oh, come on. No way, really? Is this a prank? A cancellation episode? So after getting cancelled for his typical behavior, Zap gets replaced by Leela as captain while he's forced to attend sensitivity training. This was a creative way of presenting Leela gradually getting upset at her dead-end job. But that's about where my praise ends. It's becoming common for me to say this, but while there's nothing inherently bad about it aside from that lame-ass idea, it's just not funny or memorable. Zapp is still a good character to watch, so seeing more of him is always nice, but certainly not one of his best appearances. They've resorted to using words like PC and woke, and it's just becoming a bit sad to watch. Oh, wonderful! In such a short season, we still have time for an anthology. Glad to see they came up with a plethora of new ideas in that decade off the air. So Leela falls for the Prince of Space as the two agree to get married. Okay. But there's no time for that, as this story is frequently interrupted at the most inopportune times to show us 3 toy commercials, which is where a majority of the runtime is taken up. We see the cast, but they're wind-up toys. How about we see them as cars now? But dude, get ready as we top it off with the characters as rubber ducks. Sounds hilarious. I have literally nothing to say about this. I can't believe it contains 4 different storylines and all of them are horrible, especially having Leela just break up with Fry on the spot. You've already written yourself into the corner of not being able to do stuff like that, especially after Meanwhile. And so to do it here as such a quick gag just feels cheap. Especially when Fry actively wants to help make sure their wedding happens, like what? This is the worst episode of Futurama, hands down. Didn't think it was possible to be more shit than that nature one, but they figured it out. It's the 2020s, so every show ever can't go beyond 10 episodes a season. And so we end here, as the professor introduces this simulated universe made out entirely of voxels. Honestly, I'm happy they committed to this the entire time, even after it causes the crew to question their own existence, especially Bender, who realizes he technically is simulated. Not the most groundbreaking one around, but in this season, it's undoubtedly the best of the bunch. Him not wanting the professor to turn it off and deny them their existence. The simulation getting more and more advanced before that simulation creates its own simulation, only adding to their fears of also being in one. This is a super creative episode, I love it. The simulated version's trying to overload the system as the real crew watches in horror. This is the only one of the season I'd actually recommend watching for yourself. Glad they at least saved the best till last. Boy, what a fucking drop-off, right? I mean, I guess it was bound to feel different after a decade off the air. But I think the issue is that it looks so similar to the Comedy Central stuff that you could easily watch it in a vacuum and not realize there was so much time between. Unless you're really paying attention, like some of the character designs being slightly different. I noticed Fry's eyes were super small, but his pupils are giant. Overall, though, you just get the feeling that Hulu got the rights to air the show, and figured making a new season would give them the chance to widely advertise it again, hoping people will come to sit through the new season, and then maybe go back and binge through the classics. That's an extremely cynical mindset, I know, but in the analytical world of streaming, I'm pretty confident in that assessment. Still, though, they picked him up for 2 seasons, not 1, so we got another 10 to go. Let's hope we at least go out in a bang and not a whimper. Our final season kicks off as Bender starts his own NFT collection. It's so lame, and there's not even an attempt to disguise how lazy it is. Much like NFTs themselves. You pretty much get the whole picture within the first 5 minutes, so I'm at least glad they moved things along and focused the episode more so on Bender trying to find out more about his heritage in Mexico. Neat getting to see his family, although I'm pretty sure they've contradicted his origin story a million times at this point. But I just don't see the need for the B story of the crew trying to steal his NFTs back. He had no passion for them, he already got his money, and had moved on to the next plot. Why bother? Awful premiere. Oh yeah, Squid Game reference, how cool. Thankfully it's not a super direct parody, instead revolving around everyone crash landing on a desert planet during Fry's surprise party, the land containing nothing but his old house where we learn about his most traumatic birthday. Nothing against Billy West, he's a phenomenal voice actor, not that he needs my reassurance, but boy, he's really starting to show his age. I mean, the guy's in his 70s. Hope he continues getting work, of course, but it's such a harsh contrast to how he sounded previously. I guess it's gonna happen after a 10-year break, though. Something else I've noticed is that each episode is now a little longer, being roughly 24 minutes as opposed to 22, leaving a little more room to expand upon stories, which you think they would do given the fact that both these Season 9 episodes jump right into the plot within the first minute? I mean, remember when it used to take 7? But despite that, it falls flat due to the actual concepts at play here not warranting the added time. They're forced to be the human playthings for a mysterious alien species, reenacting party games with a deadly twist. The way they're constantly cutting back to his past feels so forced with the reasoning being extremely unclear until the end, and when we finally do learn, it's like, Okay, his mom cheated for him when he was a kid. Sure. Sad ending and all, but... well, that's just it, it's sad. One of the better episodes of the Hulu revival, but without a doubt the weakest of the past adventures. I like the idea behind the temp a lot. Us having this random Fry stand-in after learning that directly after the events of the Amazonian episode from Season 2, Fry went on a recovery vacation, where Planet Express then hired this temp guy, coming back years later to try and take over his life. You feel pretty bad for the guy, the crew abandoning him on a desolate planet for 23 years. He's completely in the right to be this villainous, although why he'd want to continue working with these losers I have no clue. I wish it didn't take them so long to get into it, and the mind control angle felt fairly contrived, but still, it's alright. Pretty sure they recasted Mr. Wong after Billy West has been voicing him for the entire run up until now. I mean, I get it. So Bender trains to become a matador to get with the instructor. I have quite literally nothing to say. I find so many of the scenes just go on for way too long, trying their best to draw out the action and drama. And so by the time it became about Bender caring if Bugalo are too sentient to be used for sport, I was mainly confused. Since when did he give a shit? Just boring. After a needless Fire Festival parody, we're introduced to Leela's AI chatbot friend, who's been getting increasingly more jealous at her making new ones. It's such a tired idea, and unfortunately it isn't funny enough to make up for it. All the secondary characters used for her club all revolve around one-note gags that don't make me appreciate their greater screen time here. I really am reaching that point of being done, and not because I'm watching these all at once or anything. I took a long-ass break before starting the Hulu seasons, just to make sure there was no fatigue influencing my opinions, and unfortunately, it still sucks, plain and simple. Thank God, a decent one, as the professor creates a new clothing line that takes the world by storm. Them revealing this was his passion all along comes a tad out of nowhere, but it's kind of funny seeing him commit this hard to it. I find the twist to be pretty forced, like they just needed some reason for him to go back to science, and so they just reveal that the wormhole they discard their old clothing in is actually a future Earth, because the environment and stuff. Can't believe they unironically played a Nicki Minaj song for their montage. I was so confused. This is an okay episode, but nowhere near what I'd call good. It doesn't even have an ending, they just accept their fate. Here's an episode all about coffee, as the gang travel to Jamaica to find Hermes' father, owner of his own coffee bean farm, and currently dying, dead. I just can't find myself giving a shit. You know, it's like the cat one from earlier. Would it not be funny if coffee actually came from space aliens? No. Like the past few, it's not bad, I just wish I had more to say. So many of these are just going in one ear, not the other. It's as if they came up with a pun Planet Espresso and went from there. Amy gets obsessed with collecting these plush toys in a Beanie Babies / Pokemon parody, really satirizing that in the ground floor. It's just such an obnoxious, lazy way to take it. Turns out the toys are actually sentient and plan on using their cuteness to take over the world. They just waited a while for some reason, I guess. This episode was particularly unfunny. It's not just that I wasn't laughing, but that many of the jokes in here actively made me groan, and the Amy learning to be a good mother arc felt so forced, one of my least favorite right here. Couldn't go without at least one more anthology. Let's just hope it's better than the last. Each segment this time is a parody of a famous children's book. Nancy Drew, Tintin, which looks charming at the very least. And Encyclopedia Brian, is that really what it's called? Who goes to Futurama wanting this? We end, for now, on Otherwise, which actually has a neat concept, if a tad repetitious, especially when we already know this isn't the finale. Are we really gonna have to experience one of these every time they worry the show will end? Kinda makes the prospect of a finale lose all impact.
Honestly, some of those 3-part adventures were kinda sloppy.
When did Futurama have 3-part episodes? What are they on about? Boy, I sure hope somebody got fired for that blunder. Wow, I gotta finish it that time. So Fry plans on proposing to Leela, again. However, he picks up on, well, the again part, feeling an extreme case of deja vu, but not knowing why. I like when they lose their ship and replace it with this gray minimalist one. It's exactly what I was saying like an hour ago. The multiverse twist was pretty expected, especially since we didn't see them escape the multiverse sea the ship sunk in. But if there were any way to end this look through, I'm at least glad it's with an episode that tries to do something greater. and it accomplishes that pretty well, even if the ending feels like they didn't want to fully commit to having Fry remember the events of the previous timeline, probably because it would be too big of a shakeup they could no longer backtrack on. Obviously, with everything here being in reference to Meanwhile, and the events that transpired there was no way it was going to hold a candle to it, but still, this was okay. The Hulu seasons have, so far, definitely picked up in quality to say the least. The bad of this was nowhere near as bad as Season 8, but still, none of this seems worth bringing the show back over. It seems like this show gets away with being brought back all the time because of that time off. People miss it because it spends more time off the air than on. But I think the Hulu seasons, at least in the 20 episodes we've gotten so far, shows a mark in which the crew have just run out of ideas officially. You know, at best, it's harmless, and at worst, it actively harms the legacy of the show, through not allowing it to have that perfect, definitive finale. That Fox run was incredibly solid. It's got some of the best episodes of any cartoon in there. You know, the worst of it is just middling, and that's an extremely gracious compliment to give a show. I think what I like so much about it, as I've said throughout the video, is how well it balances comedy, sci-fi, character, along with giving the show a feeling of progression, never feeling like it needs to stay stagnant. The Comedy Central run, for as mixed as I was on it at the time, I actually look back on rather fondly, although I'm sure much of that has to do with the quality of the Hulu seasons. But really, they kept the spirit of the show alive best they could. Any downtick was naturally a result of that time off the air, along with shakeups in the crew that undoubtedly happened. You could tell things had run their course a bit, but if it had ended with Meanwhile, I don't think anybody would have cared. It really would have been the perfect run. The Hulu seasons, if you couldn't tell, it just feels like the show has officially run out of steam. It just doesn't know what to do with itself. And I think what I hate so much about it is that the show has been brought back so many times that I can't imagine they're even going to attempt to give it a finale anymore. Even when the Hulu seasons end. What's to say it won't just get picked up again 10 years later? And so like I said, the whole show feels stagnant, like they don't really have the chance to push things in any new direction. The only major shakeup is Amy having her kids. But even that was just in service of bringing back a plot point from 20 years ago. You just get this feeling of restrictiveness. There's nowhere for any of these characters to go. To be fair, I'm actually incredibly impressed that they've never had that horrendous episode. You know, the episode where you can just tell everything's going downhill. But is it really worth bringing back Futurama every 10 years for a string of episodes that most people just don't care about? It doesn't even seem like the Futurama fans were happy this time. Response to the Hulu stuff being overwhelmingly negative. You know, Comedy Central's run, while a lot more mixed with fans, I would still say leans on the more positive side, but there's no doubt about it this time. People just didn't want more Futurama if it wasn't going to hit the ground running building off the events of Meanwhile. It's kind of hard to just bring things back to square one after that. Proved to me by the fact that their episode building off of Meanwhile is one of the most positively received episodes in recent time. In the age of serialized TV shows, why wouldn't fans want an updated Futurama that takes a risk? A Futurama that tries to push things forward, instead of just wallowing in the familiar. Think I got my point across? Let me know if you agree or not. Obviously, if you like the Hulu seasons, that's fine. Again, they're not horrible or anything. Just not what the show needed, in my opinion. But if you want to see where each episode ends up in the overall ranking, then stick around, because I'm going to be doing that right now. At the bottom of the list with 140, we have The Prince and the Product, Naturama, The Futurama Mystery Library, Saturday Morning Fun Pit, Cuteness Overload, 31st Century Fox, How the West Was 1010001, The Butterjunk Effect. One is silicon and the other gold. The Futurama Holiday Spectacular, The Da Vinci Code, Rage Against the Vaccine, Beauty and the Bug, The One Amigo, 40% Leadbelly, Yo Leela Leela, Children of a Lesser Bog, Fry and the Eggman, A Leela of Her Own, That's Lobster Tainment, Stench and Stenchability, Zap Gets Cancelled, The Impossible Stream, Parasites Regained, Related to Items You Viewed, Planet Espresso, Zap Dingbat, A Taste of Freedom, Attack of the Killer App, Where No Fan Has Gone Before, Crimes of the Hot, The Root of All Evil, Inagata de Leela, Calculon 2.0, Leela and the Genestock, Bender Should Not Be Allowed on TV, Bend Her, Obsoletely Fabulous, Proposition Infinity, That Darn Cats, The Silence of the Clamps, The Thief of Baghead, Mobius Dick, Attack of the Clothes, Quids Game, War is the H Word, the Bird Box of Icecatraz, the 30% Iron Chef, 300 Big Boys, the Tip of the Zoidberg, A Pharaoh to Remember, Insane in the Mainframe, Bendin' in the Wind, Free Will Hunting, Decision 3012, The Inhuman Torch, Assy Come Home, The $6 Million Mon, A Clockwork Origin, The Mutants Are Revolting, 2D Blacktop, Spanish Fry, Less Than Hero, The Deep South, Fear of a Bot Planet, Ahead in the Polls, Raging Bender, Bender Gets Mead, Anthology of Interest 1, Kif Gets Knocked Up a Notch, I Know What You Did Next Xmas, Bender's Game, Future Stock, Where the Bugalo Roam, Newtopia, All the President's Heads, Reincarnation, Lure Concealable Indifferences, Anthology of Interest 2, Fun in a Bun, The Temp, Cold Warriors, How Hermes Requisitioned His Groove Back, Law and Oracle, Otherwise, The Beast with a Billion Backs, Attila Two Santas, A Bicyclops Built for Two, I Roommate, A Big Piece of Garbage, When Aliens Attack, The Bots and the Bees, T, The Terrestrial, A Farewell to Arms, I Second That Emotion, The Honking, Overclockwise, Lethal Inspection, Benless Lev, Into the Wild Green Yonder, Viva Mars Vegas, Love and Rocket, Mother's Day, Ghost in the Machines, Fry and Leela's Big Fling, I Dated a Robot, Mars University, A Fishful of Dollars, Near Death Wish, A Clone of My Own, Why Must I Be a Crustacean in Love, The Lesser of Two Evils, Murder on the Planet Express, All the Way Dawn, Hell is Other Robots, Fry in the Slurm Factory, The Day the Earth Stood Stupid, The Problem with Poplars, Brannigan Begin Again, The Cryonic Woman, My Three Sons, Love Labor's Lost in Space, Godfellas, Rebirth, The Prisoner of Benda, Bandorama, Teenage Mutant Leela's Hurdles, The Farnsworth Paradox, The Cyber House Rules, Xmas Story, Space Pilot 3000, Amazon Women in the Mood, The Series Has Landed, Roswell That Ends Well, Put Your Head on My Shoulder, Game of Tones, Bender's Big Score, Time Keeps on Slippin', Parasites Lost, A Flight to Remember, Leela's Homeworld, Meanwhile, The Late Philip J. Fry, The Devil's Hands Are Idle Playthings, The Sting, The Why of Fry, Jurassic Bark, and finally, The Luck of the Fryrish. Like I said back in Season 4, Jurassic Bark versus The Luck of the Fryrish could go either way for me any given day. But the longer I thought about it, the more I had to give it to Luck of the Fryrish. And no matter how much you disagreed with my opinion, especially on the Hulu stuff, I imagine that's going to be at least slightly controversial. Take solace in knowing that, either way, Futurama isn't going anywhere. We're already getting another 2 seasons, and after that, I don't know. My main concern with all of this is that the show will just never get the chance to have a proper finale. A satisfying one at the very least. You know, we saw them try again and again and again, just to finally hit it on the head, before basically having to undo all of it. But it's their prerogative. If that's what they want to do, it's what they want to do. And that seems to be letting the series, and these characters, stay in stasis, frozen in time. Wait, if I was clever, I would have posted this on New Year's Eve. Fuck!